Hello there, and welcome to this gentle exploration. Tonight, we descend into a world that exists just beneath our feet, a realm of cooperation, communication, and endless wonder. The world of ants. These tiny creatures, often overlooked, have built civilizations that rival our own in complexity and organization. They farm, they wage war, they tend gardens, and they care for their young with devotion that would make any parent proud. If you enjoy these quiet journeys into nature's secrets, know that your presence here matters. But for now, all you need to do is rest, settle in, and allow the gentle rhythm of this story to carry you into peaceful sleep. Let us begin our descent into the hidden kingdom. Every ant colony is a superorganism, acting as one unified being. When you see a trail of ants marching across your kitchen counter, you might think you're watching individuals, but in truth, you're witnessing something far more remarkable. An ant colony functions as a single organism, with each ant playing a role much like cells in a body. The colony breathes as one, responds as one, and thinks as one, though no single ant understands the whole picture. Scientists call this a superorganism. The queen is like the reproductive system, the workers like hands and feet, the soldiers like an immune system fighting off threats. Together, they create something greater than the sum of their parts, a living, thinking entity, spread across thousands or even millions of tiny bodies. Each ant follows simple rules, yet from these rules emerges breathtaking complexity. No ant knows the grand plan, yet the colony thrives, adapts, and conquers challenges that would baffle any individual. In their collective intelligence, ants remind us that cooperation can achieve what no single being ever could. Ants have existed for more than 100 million years. Long before humans walked the earth, before even the first grasses grew, ants were already here. Fossil records show they emerged during the age of dinosaurs, more than 100 million years ago. While those giant reptiles ruled above, tiny ants were perfecting their underground empires below. They survived the asteroid impact that ended the dinosaurs. They weathered ice ages, continental shifts, and countless extinctions. Through it all, ants endured, adapted, and thrived. Today, they are among the most successful creatures on Earth, found on every continent except Antarctica. To hold an ant in your hand is to touch a lineage older than mountains, a survivor of epochs we can barely imagine. Their ancient heritage speaks to the power of cooperation and adaptation. While individual species may come and go, the ant family persists, a testament to the strength hidden in small things. There are more than 12,000 known species of ants worldwide. The diversity of ants is staggering. Scientists have identified over 12,000 species, and new ones are discovered regularly. Each has adapted to its own niche, its own way of life. Some are farmers, cultivating fungus in underground gardens. Others are hunters, bringing down prey many times their size. Some are nomads, forever on the move. Others build permanent empires that last for decades. There are ants that live in trees, constructing nests from leaves sewn together with silk. There are ants that invade other colonies, enslaving workers to serve them. There are ants so small you can barely see them, and ants large enough to deliver a painful sting. The variety seems endless. Each species a unique solution to the challenge of survival, from the leafcutter ants of the Amazon to the harvester ants of the desert, from the army ants of Africa to the carpenter ants in your walls. Each species tells its own story. Together, they paint a picture of evolution's endless creativity, of life finding a way in every corner of the world. Ants can be found on every continent except Antarctica. Ants have conquered nearly every terrestrial habitat on Earth. They thrive in rainforests where moisture drips constantly from leaves. They survive in deserts where surface temperatures would cook most creatures. They live in temperate forests, grasslands, mountains, and even inside our homes. Only the frozen continent of Antarctica remains beyond their reach. The extreme cold and lack of vegetation make it impossible for these social insects to establish colonies. Everywhere else, if you look closely enough, you will find ants going about their business. Invisible architects of ecosystems, their global presence speaks to their adaptability. They have evolved solutions for nearly every environmental challenge Earth can throw at them. Heat, cold, drought, flood ants have found ways to survive them all. In their quiet persistence, they remind us that success often comes not from size or strength, but from flexibility and cooperation. A single ant colony can contain millions of individuals. When you see an anthill, you might assume it houses hundreds or perhaps thousands of ants. But the truth can be far more astonishing. Some species build colonies containing millions of individuals. These megacolonies stretch across vast territories, with multiple nests connected by underground tunnels and surface trails. Imagine a city where every citizen knows their role, where communication flows instantly, where resources are shared without conflict. That is an ant colony. The organization required to coordinate millions of individuals is staggering, yet ants accomplish it without central planning or top-down control. Each ant responds to local information, the chemical trails it detects, the needs of the larvae it encounters, the threats it perceives. From these local interactions emerges global order. The colony pulses with life, a symphony of activity where each tiny musician plays its part without ever seeing the conductor. The largest known ant supercolony stretches thousands of kilometers. In southern Europe, scientists discovered something extraordinary: a supercolony of Argentine ants stretching over 6,000 kilometers from Italy to the Atlantic coast of Spain. This is not a single nest, but a network of billions of ants living in millions of nests, all cooperating as one vast entity. What makes this possible is that ants from different nests within the supercolony recognize each other as nestmates. They don't fight, but instead cooperate, sharing food and resources. It's as though they've created a nation, a civilization spanning a continent. Similar supercolonies have been found in California, Japan, and Australia. Some researchers believe that ants from these distant supercolonies, all descended from the same South American ancestors, recognize each other despite being separated by oceans. They have, in a sense, created a global society. The scale defies comprehension. To an ant, this supercolony must seem as vast as the universe seems to us. Yet they maintain it, defend it, and expand it, one tiny step at a time. In their achievement, we glimpse the power of collective action. Ants communicate primarily through chemical signals called pheromones. If you could shrink down to ant size, you would experience a world utterly foreign. Sound matters little. Vision is limited. But smell is everything. Ants live in a universe of chemical messages, speaking to each other through substances called pheromones. When a forager finds food, it leaves a pheromone trail as it returns to the nest. Other ants detect this trail and follow it to the food source, reinforcing the trail with their own pheromones. The more ants that follow, the stronger the trail becomes. This is how ant highways form, streams of workers flowing between nest and food. Different pheromones convey different messages. There are alarm pheromones that send the colony into defensive mode, trail pheromones that say, "Food this way," recognition pheromones that identify friend from foe, queen pheromones that maintain colony cohesion, The chemical vocabulary is vast and subtle. To us, this seems alien. But imagine a language where every message lingers in the air, where words hang in space for others to read. In their chemical conversations, ants have created a form of communication perfectly suited to their needs. Each ant species has its own unique chemical signature. Just as humans from different cultures speak different languages, ants from different species carry different chemical signatures. These signatures are like passports, instantly identifying which colony and which species an ant belongs to. The chemicals are mostly hydrocarbons, waxes that coat the ant's exoskeleton. Guard ants at the nest entrance are like customs officers, checking each returning worker to ensure it carries the right chemical passport. If an intruder tries to enter, the mismatch in chemical signature triggers immediate aggression. The colony's security depends on this chemical recognition system. Interestingly, this signature is not entirely genetic. Young ants learn their colony's smell, absorbing it from their nestmates and their environment. This means that in some cases, ants raised in a different colony will adopt that colony's signature and be accepted as members. The sophistication of this system is remarkable. In a world where sight and sound provide limited information, chemical identity provides certainty. Each ant is wrapped in a molecular flag, announcing its allegiance to all who have the senses to read it. Ant trails form through positive feedback loops. The formation of ant trails is one of nature's elegant solutions to a complex problem. How do you direct thousands of individuals to a food source without any central coordination? The answer lies in positive feedback. One ant finds food by random wandering. As it returns home, it lays down a faint pheromone trail. Other ants, detecting this trail, are slightly more likely to go that direction. Those that find the food also lay trails on their return, strengthening the signal. Soon, a highway forms. But the system is self-correcting. If the food runs out, ants stop reinforcing the trail, the pheromones evaporate, and the trail fades. The colony's attention naturally shifts to more productive paths. It's a dynamic system, constantly adapting to changing conditions. This simple mechanism creates remarkably efficient networks. Ant trails often find the shortest path between nest and food, not through planning, but through the natural strengthening of the quickest routes. In their chemical highways, we see the emergence of intelligence from simplicity. Some ant species can carry objects 50 times their own body weight. If you scaled an ant up to human size, its strength would be legendary. Many species can lift objects 50 times their own weight. Some can manage even more. It's as if a 150-pound human could casually pick up a small car and carry it over their head. This extraordinary strength comes from the physics of being small. As you shrink, your muscle cross-sectional area decreases slower than your body weight. This gives small creatures a strength-to-weight ratio that would be impossible at larger sizes. An ant's muscles, relative to its mass, can generate far more force than human muscles. Watch a leafcutter ant carrying a piece of leaf many times its size back to the nest. The leaf acts like a sail, catching wind, yet the ant persists, adjusting its grip and angle, marching steadily onward. Its determination matches its strength. This power enables ants to move building materials, carry prey, and relocate larvae. It makes them formidable despite their size. In the world of small things, ants are titans, proving that might comes in many forms. Leafcutter ants can strip a tree of its leaves in a single night. In the rainforests of Central and South America, a rustle in the undergrowth signals their approach. Leafcutter ants, millions strong, descending upon a tree. By dawn, what was lush and green may be reduced to bare branches, every leaf cut away and carried underground. These ants don't eat the leaves. Instead, they chew them into pulp and use it to fertilize underground fungus gardens. The fungus breaks down the plant matter, and the ants harvest the fungus as food. They are farmers, and they've been practicing agriculture for millions of years before humans invented it. A mature leafcutter colony can contain 8 million individuals and consume as much vegetation as a cow. Their foraging trails stretch for hundreds of meters. Busy highways packed with workers carrying leaf fragments. From above, the trail looks like a green river flowing into the earth. The impact on the forest is significant. By selecting certain plants and avoiding others, leafcutters shape the composition of the rainforest. They are gardeners on a grand scale, pruning the jungle to their needs. In their endless harvest, they remind us that small actions, multiplied, can reshape entire landscapes. These ants have been farming fungus for more than 50 million years. Long before humans planted the first seeds, leaf-cutter ants were already accomplished agriculturalists. Fossil evidence suggests they began cultivating fungus over 50 million years ago. Across those epochs, they have perfected their techniques, creating a partnership with their fungal crops that is both complex and intimate. The fungus the ants cultivate is found nowhere else in nature. It exists only in ant colonies, completely dependent on its farmers for survival. In return, it provides the ants with all the nutrition they need. This is true mutualism. Two species so intertwined that neither can survive without the other. Queen ants carry a small sample of fungus with them when they leave to start new colonies. This is their inheritance, more valuable than any treasure. Without it, a new colony cannot begin. With it, a new garden can be planted, and from that garden, a new empire can grow. The sophistication is stunning. The ants weed out contaminating fungi, apply antimicrobial secretions to prevent disease, and regulate temperature and humidity to optimal levels. They have created controlled environments for farming underground, using techniques that would impress any human agriculturalist. Ant colonies have different castes, each with specialized roles. Within an ant colony, not all ants are created equal. From the moment they hatch, individuals are destined for different roles based on what the colony needs. This division of labor, called caste system, is one of the keys to ant success. The queen is the reproductive center, laying thousands of eggs. Her life can span decades, far longer than any worker. She is the heart of the colony, and her loss can spell its doom. Yet she does not rule. She simply produces the next generation. Workers, always female, form the majority. They forage, tend the young, maintain the nest, and defend against threats. Within the worker caste, there may be further specialization. Some are nurses, staying with the larvae. Some are foragers, venturing out for food. Some are builders, constructing and repairing the nest. Soldiers, in species that have them, are larger workers with powerful jaws designed for combat. They defend the colony against intruders and sometimes assist in cutting up large prey. Males exist only to mate with new queens, and they die shortly after fulfilling this role. This division allows the colony to function with remarkable efficiency. Each ant does what it does best, and together they create something far greater than themselves. The queen ant can live for decades, far longer than workers. In the hidden chambers at the heart of the nest lives the queen, the mother of the colony. While worker ants may live only weeks or months, queen ants of some species can survive for 30 years or more. She is an ancient presence, outliving generations of her daughters. Her long life is possible because she rarely leaves the nest. She doesn't forage, doesn't defend, doesn't expose herself to predators or harsh weather. Her sole purpose is reproduction, and at this, she excels. A single queen can lay thousands of eggs per day, millions over her lifetime. Workers attend her constantly, feeding her, cleaning her, carrying away her eggs to the nursery chambers. She is surrounded by the devotion of her daughters, each one willing to die to protect her. Her survival ensures the colony's survival, yet she is not immortal. When a queen dies, the colony faces a crisis. Without her, no new workers will be born. The colony will slowly decline as workers age and die. Some species can raise a new queen from existing larvae, but others cannot. The colony's fate hangs on this one individual, this single thread connecting past to future. Worker ants are all female and sterile. In the bustling crowds of workers that make up the bulk of the colony, not a single one can reproduce. They are female, but they are sterile, their reproductive systems undeveloped. This might seem like a sacrifice, but in the logic of evolution, it makes perfect sense. Workers share 75% of their genes with their sisters, more than they would with their own offspring. By helping their mother produce more sisters, they are actually propagating their genes more effectively than if they reproduced themselves. This genetic quirk makes sterile workers an evolutionary success story. Their inability to reproduce frees them for other tasks. They don't need to seek mates or protect eggs. They can focus entirely on supporting the colony. In giving up personal reproduction, they enable the colony to thrive. This is the essence of eusociality, the highest form of social organization in the animal kingdom. Individuals sacrifice their own reproductive potential for the good of the group. It seems selfless, but it's written into their very genes, a strategy that has allowed social insects to dominate the world. Male ants exist only to mate and die shortly after. In the ant world, being male is a brief and singular experience. Male ants develop from unfertilized eggs, meaning they have only half the usual number of chromosomes. They have mothers, but no fathers, a quirk of ant genetics called haplodiploidy. Males are produced only when the colony is ready to reproduce. They develop wings, and on certain days when conditions are right, take flight along with virgin queens. This is the nuptial flight, a spectacular event where ants from many colonies take to the air at once. Males mate with queens in flight, transferring sperm that the queen will store and use for the rest of her life. After mating, the male's purpose is fulfilled. They have no role in the colony, no ability to eat on their own, no future. Within hours or days, they die. It seems a harsh fate, but in the economy of the colony, it makes sense. Males are a temporary investment, created only when needed, discarded once their role is complete. They are flying packets of genes, existing briefly to ensure the continuation of their line. Nuptial flights see millions of winged ants taking to the sky. On warm days after rain, often in late summer or early fall, something remarkable happens. From countless nests, winged ants emerge in vast numbers. The air fills with them, a swirling cloud of reproductive individuals seeking mates. This is the nuptial flight. The timing is crucial. Colonies across a region somehow synchronize their flights, ensuring that queens and males from different nests have the opportunity to meet. This prevents inbreeding and maintains genetic diversity. The mechanisms behind this synchronization remain partially mysterious, a coordination achieved without communication. For the ants, it is a moment of transformation. Queens and males that have never seen the sky suddenly take flight, leaving behind the only home they've known. For queens, this is a one-way journey. They will never fly again. For males, it is their last act. Predators converge on these events. Birds feast on the abundance. Spiders catch ants in their webs. Many ants never complete their purpose, becoming meals instead of parents, but enough survive to ensure the next generation. To witness a nuptial flight is to see the colony reaching beyond itself, sending its genetic material into the future. It is birth and death intertwined, sacrifice and hope rising together into the summer air. After mating, the queen breaks off her wings and starts a new colony. A young queen, freshly mated and heavy with sperm stored in her body, lands. She has left the sky forever. Now comes one of the most remarkable acts in the insect world. She grasps her wings with her legs and deliberately breaks them off. The wings that carried her to her mate are now useless, even burdensome. She will never fly again. She is committing to the earth, to the hidden world beneath. With this act, she transforms from a flying reproductive into a founding mother. She searches for a suitable site, perhaps under a stone or in a crack in the soil. Once found, she seals herself in a small chamber. Then, in darkness and isolation, she begins to lay eggs. She eats nothing, surviving on the energy reserves from her own wing muscles, which her body breaks down for fuel. The first workers to emerge are tiny, underfed, because the queen has limited resources. But they are enough. They begin to forage, bringing food back to the nest. The queen can now focus entirely on egg-laying. Slowly, the colony grows. This founding period is perilous. Most new queens fail. Predators find them. They starve. Disease strikes. But those that succeed establish lineages that may persist for decades. From one fragile queen in a small dark chamber, empires rise. Some ants invade other colonies and enslave their workers. Not all ants are farmers or hunters. Some are raiders, practicing a form of warfare that results in slavery. These slave-making ants, found in several species, attack neighboring colonies, killing or driving off the adult defenders, then stealing the pupae. When these stolen pupae emerge as adults, they imprint on the smell of their captor's nest. They don't know they've been kidnapped. To them, the slave makers are nestmates, and they serve the colony as if it were their own, foraging and caring for larvae that are not their siblings. The slave makers themselves often become dependent on their slaves. In some species, the raiders have evolved to be so specialized in combat that they can no longer perform basic tasks like feeding themselves. Without their slaves, the colony would collapse. It's a disturbing parallel to human history, this practice of enslaving others for labor. Yet, in the ant world, the slaves are oblivious to their servitude. They've been manipulated at the most fundamental level, their very identity rewritten. This strategy shows evolution's amoral creativity. Any adaptation that increases survival and reproduction can be favored, regardless of how it appears to moral beings. In the hidden wars beneath our feet, ants practice behaviors that mirror our own darkest chapters. Army ants are nomadic hunters that travel in massive raiding columns. In the rainforests of South America and Africa, a rustling approaches through the leaf litter. It grows louder, a sound like rainfall. Then they appear, army ants, hundreds of thousands of them, flowing across the forest floor in a living river of biting mandibles. Army ants don't build permanent nests. They are nomads, constantly on the move, carrying their larvae and queen with them. When they stop to rest, workers link their bodies together to form a temporary nest called a bivouac, a ball of living ants that may contain 500,000 individuals. Their raids are spectacular and terrifying. The column advances, searching every crevice, every bit of ground. Anything that can't escape is killed and dismembered. Insects, spiders, sometimes even small vertebrates fall to the swarm. They are the ultimate pack hunters, overwhelming prey through sheer numbers. Other creatures have learned to follow army ant raids. Birds gather above, snatching insects fleeing the ants below. Some species of beetles live among the army ants, chemical mimics accepted by the colony. They are camp followers in an eternal march. To encounter an army ant raid is to witness nature red in tooth and claw, or rather, red in mandible and sting. They are a force of nature, unstoppable, relentless, cleaning the forest floor of any creature too slow to escape. A single army ant raid can kill and consume 500,000 prey items. The efficiency of an army ant raid is staggering. Scientists who have studied these events estimate that a single raid can capture and kill up to 500,000 prey items. This includes insects of all kinds, spiders, scorpions, and anything else in their path. The ants work with perfect coordination, despite having no leader directing them. Scouts at the front of the column explore new ground. When they find prey, they attack immediately, and their alarm pheromones draw more workers. The colony flows toward resistance, like water finding cracks. Prey is dismembered where it falls, cut into pieces small enough for individual ants to carry. A steady stream of workers flows back toward the bivouac, each bearing a fragment of the day's harvest. The larvae, hungry and growing, will be fed with this abundance. For the ecosystem, army ants are both terror and cleaning crew. They remove huge numbers of invertebrates, affecting population dynamics across the forest. Yet they also open opportunities, disturbing the leaf litter, exposing seeds, creating gaps for new growth. In their ravenous march, they remind us that nature is neither cruel nor kind, but simply hungry, forever consuming and being consumed in the endless cycle of life. Fire ants deliver painful stings that feel like burning. There are ants you can observe safely. And then there are fire ants. These aggressive defenders of their colonies have earned their common name through the intense burning sensation their stings produce. Step on a fire ant mound, and within seconds, you'll understand why they inspire such respect and fear. Fire ants, native to South America but now invasive in many regions, swarm onto threats. They climb rapidly, and on some unseen signal, they all sting at once. Each sting injects venom containing alkaloids that cause a painful burning sensation, followed by the formation of a white pustule. For most people, fire ant stings are merely painful and annoying. But for those with allergies, they can be dangerous, even fatal. The ants' aggressive defense has made them both feared and costly, causing billions in damages and medical expenses in areas where they've become established. Yet from the ants' perspective, they are simply defending their home with admirable dedication. They've evolved chemical warfare that works, a deterrent that convinces larger creatures to leave them alone. Their success as invaders shows how effective this strategy can be. To feel a fire ant's sting is to experience chemical communication at its most direct. The venom is a message written in pain. Stay away from our colony. Bullet ants have the most painful insect sting in the world. In the rainforests of Central and South America lives an ant whose sting is legendary. The bullet ant, named because people claim its sting feels like being shot, produces pain so intense it has earned the top rating on the Schmidt Sting Pain Index. Those who have experienced it describe waves of throbbing pain that can last for 24 hours. The venom contains a neurotoxin that affects sodium channels in nerve cells, amplifying pain signals. Unlike bee stings that hurt acutely then fade, bullet ant pain persists and intensifies. Some indigenous peoples use bullet ants in initiation ceremonies. Young men must wear gloves filled with bullet ants, enduring hundreds of stings as a test of courage and endurance. Those who complete this trial without crying out are recognized as men, The ordeal speaks to the extraordinary pain these ants can inflict. Yet the ants themselves are not aggressive, unless their nest is threatened. They are large, nearly an inch long, and often solitary foragers. They deliver their devastating sting only when necessary, a weapon of last resort that ensures most creatures learn to leave them alone. In the economy of nature, the bullet ant's sting is its castle wall, so formidable that few dare assault it. Ants evolved from wasp-like ancestors during the age of dinosaurs. If you traveled back 100 million years, you might not immediately recognize the ancestors of modern ants. They looked more like wasps, with visible waists, larger wings, and different behavior. But they were beginning the evolutionary journey that would lead to the ants we know today. The fossil record preserves this transition. Early ants show characteristics of both wasps and modern ants. They had wings that modern worker ants lack. Their mandibles were less specialized. But they were already social, already living in colonies, already caring for their young together. The key innovation was switching from a primarily predatory lifestyle to one that could exploit a wider range of food sources. As flowering plants diversified, ants evolved alongside them, becoming farmers, seed harvesters, and cultivators of symbiotic relationships. The asteroid impact that ended the dinosaurs may have actually helped ants. In the disrupted ecosystems that followed, adaptable generalists thrived. Ants, with their varied diets and flexible behavior, were perfectly positioned to inherit the post-apocalyptic world. Today, ants are among the most successful animals on Earth, a legacy that stretches back through deep time, connecting them to an ancient world of giants now lost to memory. Fossilized ants have been discovered, preserved in amber. Amber, fossilized tree resin, is a window into ancient worlds. Trapped inside, preserved in perfect detail, scientists have found ants from tens of millions of years ago. These tiny time capsules show us what ancient ants looked like, how they behaved, even what they were carrying when they met their end. Some amber-preserved ants look remarkably similar to modern species, showing how successful their body plan has been. Others show extinct forms, evolutionary experiments that did not survive to the present. Each fossil is a story frozen in time, a moment of daily life from an unimaginably distant past. The most famous amber deposits come from the Dominican Republic and the Baltic region, but ant fossils have been found worldwide. Each discovery adds to our understanding of ant evolution, showing when different lineages diverged, when key adaptations appeared. To see an ant preserved in amber is to touch deep time, to hold in your hand a creature that lived before mountains rose, before ice ages came and went. The amber preserves not just form, but a kind of immortality, keeping these tiny beings visible long after their colonies crumbled to dust. Ants make up about 15–20% of all terrestrial animal biomass. If you were to gather all the land animals on Earth and weigh them, ants would account for somewhere between 15 and 20% of the total biomass. This staggering figure highlights how successful these insects have become. Despite their small size, their sheer numbers make them one of the dominant forms of animal life on the planet. In some ecosystems, particularly tropical rainforests, ants may represent an even higher percentage. They are everywhere, from soil to treetops, from deserts to swamps. Their omnipresence means they play crucial roles in virtually every terrestrial ecosystem on Earth. This biomass translates to impact. Ants move soil, disperse seeds, prey on other insects, and serve as food for countless predators. They are ecosystem engineers, species whose activities fundamentally shape their environment. Remove ants, and the world would look very different. To realize that such tiny creatures represent such a huge proportion of animal life is humbling. We think of large mammals as dominating the world, but by weight, ants dwarf them. In the quiet spaces beneath our notice, a kingdom thrives. Ant nests can extend many meters underground. When you see an anthill, you're seeing only the entrance to a vast underground city. Many ant nests extend deep into the earth, with chambers and tunnels reaching several meters down. Some species dig even deeper, creating structures that penetrate bedrock in search of moisture and stable temperatures. The architecture is purposeful. Upper chambers near the surface warm quickly in sunlight, perfect for developing larvae that need heat. Deeper chambers stay cool and moist, ideal for storing food or housing the queen. The nest is a climate-controlled environment, regulated not by technology, but by design and behavior. Workers constantly adjust this structure, opening and closing entrances to regulate airflow, moving brood between chambers as temperatures shift. The nest breathes with the colony, expanding in times of plenty, consolidating in lean periods. It is architecture that lives. To excavate an ant nest and cast it in plaster reveals stunning complexity. Chambers the size of baseballs connected by narrow corridors, vertical shafts for ventilation, specialized rooms for different purposes. It is engineering that rivals human achievement, built entirely by creatures following simple rules, carrying one grain of soil at a time. Some species build elaborate mounds with climate control. Certain ant species construct mounds above ground that are marvels of engineering. These structures can rise several feet high and contain millions of ants, but they are more than just homes. They are sophisticated climate control systems, regulating temperature and humidity through passive design. Inside a large mound, different chambers exist at different temperatures. Ants move, brood, and themselves between these chambers to find optimal conditions. The mound's shape and construction create convection currents that draw in fresh air and expel stale air, providing ventilation without any mechanical systems. Some species incorporate plant material into their mounds, creating compost heaps that generate warmth. Others build in ways that catch morning sun but avoid afternoon heat. The design varies by species and environment, each one a solution to local conditions. Termite mounds, built by ant relatives, include even more sophisticated features, like air conditioning through evaporative cooling. While ants haven't quite reached that level, their mounds still represent remarkable achievements in architecture and environmental engineering. To stand beside a large ant mound is to stand before a monument to collective intelligence, a structure built without blueprints or architects, yet functioning perfectly for its purpose. Weaver ants construct nests by sewing leaves together. In the tropical forests of Asia, Africa, and Australia, some trees seem to have leaves mysteriously folded and bound together. Look closer, and you'll discover weaver ants, masters of using silk not produced by themselves but by their own larvae. Adult weaver ants cannot produce silk, but their larvae can. So workers have evolved an astonishing behavior. They form chains with their bodies, pulling leaves together. Once the leaves are in position, other workers retrieve larvae from the nest and hold them like tubes of glue, gently squeezing them to release silk. The larvae weave the leaves together, creating enclosed spaces where the colony lives. These nests can be quite large, spanning multiple leaves or even multiple branches. A single colony might occupy dozens of these woven structures across a tree, defending their territory aggressively against any intruders. They are formidable predators, protecting the trees they inhabit from many herbivorous insects. The use of larvae as tools is remarkable. It shows planning, cooperation, and innovation. The ants have no genetic memory of how to make silk themselves, yet they've found a way to harness the silk-making ability of their young. turning them into living shuttles in a grand weaving project. Carpenter ants excavate galleries in wood, but don't eat it. If you've ever had carpenter ants in your house, you know they can cause significant damage. They excavate smooth galleries through wood, creating extensive tunnel systems. But despite living in wood, they don't actually eat it. They are not termites. Carpenter ants feed on honeydew from aphids, nectar, and other insects. They excavate wood purely for shelter, carving out the space they need for their colony. They prefer wood that is already soft or partially decayed, which makes excavation easier. Sound, dry wood is much harder to work with. The galleries they create are surprisingly neat, with smooth walls and regular chambers. Wood shavings and debris are carried out and deposited away from the nest, keeping the galleries clean. In a mature infestation, the sound of ants chewing wood can sometimes be heard at night, a faint rustling inside the walls. From the ants' perspective, they've found an ideal nesting site. The wood provides protection from weather and predators, and the structure can be expanded as the colony grows. They are not trying to destroy human buildings. They are simply using available resources, as they have for millions of years, in dead trees and fallen logs. Ants help aerate soil through their extensive tunneling. Every time an ant digs, it moves soil. Multiply that by billions of ants, and you begin to see their impact on the landscape. Ants are tireless earth movers, excavating tunnels and chambers, bringing subsoil to the surface, mixing layers, creating channels for air and water. In some ecosystems, ants move more soil than earthworms. Their tunnels help water infiltrate the ground, reducing runoff and erosion. They bring nutrients from deep in the soil profile to the surface, where plants can access them. Their nest chambers create spaces where roots can penetrate and microorganisms can thrive. This soil work has been happening for millions of years. The very structure of soil in many regions has been shaped by ant activity. They are invisible gardeners, preparing the ground not for their own benefit primarily, but creating conditions that benefit entire ecosystems. Farmers often see ants as pests, but ecologists recognize their value. Healthy ant populations indicate healthy soils. Their endless tunneling is work that would cost enormous sums if humans had to do it, yet ants provide it for free, as they have since long before agriculture began. Some ants farm aphids for their sugary honeydew. Watch a trail of ants climbing a plant stem, and you might discover a strange partnership. On the leaves above, aphids feed on plant sap, and ants tend them like livestock. The ants stroke the aphids with their antennae, stimulating them to release droplets of honeydew, a sugary liquid that the ants harvest and bring back to the nest. In exchange for this service, the ants protect the aphids from predators and parasites. They will attack ladybugs and other aphid predators, defending their herds aggressively. Some ants even move aphids to new feeding sites, or carry them into the nest during bad weather, sheltering them until conditions improve. This relationship is ancient and widespread. Many ant species farm aphids, and some aphid species have evolved to depend on ant care for survival. The aphids produce honeydew more readily when ants are present, and some have lost defensive behaviors they no longer need because the ants protect them. It is agriculture in miniature, complete with herding, protection, and harvest. The ants have domesticated other insects, creating a food source as reliable as our own farms. In their tiny partnerships, we see echoes of our own relationship with livestock, a strategy convergent across kingdoms of life. This mutualism has existed for millions of years. The partnership between ants and aphids is not a recent innovation. Fossil evidence and genetic studies suggest these relationships have existed for tens of millions of years. Over that vast time, both ants and aphids have evolved traits that strengthen the bond. Some aphid species have developed specialized behaviors triggered by ant attention. Others produce honeydew that is nutritionally optimized for their ant partners. Certain ants have evolved gentle mouthparts specifically for handling aphids without injuring them. This coevolution shows how species can shape each other across evolutionary time. The presence of ants has influenced which aphid traits succeed. The availability of aphids has influenced which ant behaviors are rewarded. They have grown together, their fates intertwined. In the garden, we see the result. Ants zealously guarding their aphid herds, aphids producing copious honeydew, a partnership polished by millions of years into smooth efficiency. It is one of nature's oldest business arrangements, still profitable for both parties after all this time. Ants disperse seeds of many plant species. Many plants have evolved partnerships with ants based not on sugar, but on fat. These plants produce seeds with attached structures called eliosomes, fatty appendages that ants find irresistible. Ants gather these seeds and carry them back to their nests. Once underground, the ants eat the eleosome but discard the seed itself in their waste chambers. There, the seed finds itself in perfect conditions for germination, protected from seed predators, enriched with nutrients from ant waste, and in a location with reduced competition. This relationship, called myrmecochory, is crucial for many wildflowers, particularly in forests. Some estimates suggest that in certain ecosystems, ants disperse the seeds of more than a third of herbaceous plant species. Spring wildflowers in temperate forests often rely heavily on ant dispersal. The plants essentially pay ants to plant their seeds in premium locations. The ants receive nutritious food. Both benefit, and forest diversity increases. It is a trade as old as flowering plants, a partnership written into the evolution of forests. Walk through spring woods, and beneath your feet, ants are planting next year's flowers, one seed at a time, continuing work they have done since before humans existed. Desert ants can navigate using the sun's position. In the featureless expanse of a desert, how does an ant find its way home? For desert ants like Cataglyphis, the answer lies in sophisticated navigation using the sun as a compass. They track their position relative to the sun as they forage, calculating distance and direction. This navigation system, called path integration, allows the ant to compute a direct route back to the nest, even if it has wandered in complex patterns while searching for food. It's a form of dead reckoning, constantly updated as the ant moves. But the sun moves across the sky. To compensate, the ants have internal clocks that account for the sun's changing position throughout the day. They can also detect polarized light patterns in the sky, providing compass information even when the sun itself is obscured. The precision is remarkable. A desert ant can forage hundreds of meters from its nest, wandering in search of food, then turn and walk nearly straight home. Watch one making its final approach, and you can see it searching in a small area around the nest entrance, its mental map accurate to within centimeters. This navigation happens in a brain smaller than a pinhead, yet it performs calculations that would challenge many humans. In their journeys across empty sand, desert ants demonstrate that intelligence comes in many forms. These ants can withstand surface temperatures above 50 degrees Celsius. The Sahara Desert at midday is one of Earth's most hostile environments. Surface temperatures can exceed 50 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to denature proteins and cook an exposed creature quickly. Yet this is when Saharan desert ants venture out to forage. They have evolved remarkable adaptations. Long legs lift their bodies higher off the scorching sand. Heat shock proteins protect their cells. They move quickly, minimizing exposure time. Yet even with these adaptations, they can stay out only a few minutes before they must return to the cooler underground nest. Why forage in such dangerous conditions? Because their competitors cannot. Most desert insects hide during peak heat. By venturing out when others won't, Saharan ants access food sources with no competition. They've turned the heat from threat into opportunity. Watch them scurrying across the sand, moving with frantic speed, and you're watching life at its limits. These ants exist in a narrow window between opportunity and death, exploiting resources in minutes that would kill them if they lingered. Their rush is not panic but precision, a timed performance repeated daily. In their heat tolerance, they remind us that life adapts to fill every possible niche, even those that seem impossibly harsh. Honeypot ants use workers as living storage containers. In the deserts of North America and Australia, live ants with a strange solution to feast and famine cycles. Certain workers, called repletes, serve as living food storage vessels. They are fed until their abdomens swell to many times normal size, huge, translucent globes of honeydew and nectar. These living jars hang from the ceiling of underground chambers, unable to move, sustained by their nestmates. During times of plenty, more food is pumped into them. During drought, when foraging yields little, workers approach the repletes and solicit regurgitation, drawing on these reserves to feed the colony. A single replete can store enough food to sustain several dozen ants through lean periods. Colonies may maintain hundreds of them, a vast pantry of living containers. Indigenous peoples traditionally harvested these honey-filled ants, considering them delicacies, sweet treats from the desert. The repletes sacrifice mobility and most normal ant activities to serve as storage. Yet this benefits the colony's survival, and thus their own genetic success. They are the ultimate example of caste specialization, individuals transformed into something barely recognizable as ants, yet serving an essential function. To see a chamber full of honeypot repletes is to see cooperation taken to extraordinary lengths, bodies reshaped by duty, individuals becoming vessels for the collective good. Some tropical ants have painful stings that deter large predators. In the rainforest canopy, where ants build their hanging nests and tend their aphid herds, they face threats from birds, lizards, and mammals that would gladly raid their colonies. Defense is essential, and many tropical ants have evolved chemical weapons that give even large predators pause. These venoms often contain complex mixtures of compounds that cause intense pain. Some affect nerve cells directly, others trigger inflammation. Combined, they create a sensation that animals quickly learn to avoid. A monkey that disturbs a nest full of stinging ants will remember and avoid similar nests in the future. The pain serves as teacher, a lesson written in discomfort. The colony needs only to inflict enough pain that predators learn avoidance. The ants don't need to kill large threats, just convince them to look elsewhere for food. Pain is an efficient deterrent. From the ant's perspective, venom is expensive to produce. The fact that so many species invest in powerful stings shows how effective this defense is. Natural selection has favored colonies that could hurt their enemies, and over time, those chemical weapons have been refined to maximum effectiveness. Argentine ants have formed global supercolonies on multiple continents. Argentine ants, native to South America, have become one of the world's most successful invasive species. Accidentally transported by human commerce, they have established populations on every continent except Antarctica. But these distant populations do something extraordinary. They recognize each other as nestmates. Normally, ants from different colonies fight fiercely, but Argentine ants from California will peacefully interact with Argentine ants from Japan or Australia, despite being separated by oceans and millions of nests. They have, in essence, formed a global supercolony, a civilization spanning continents. This cooperation comes at a cost to native ants. Where Argentine ants establish, they often drive out native species through sheer numbers and coordinated aggression. They are ecosystem disruptors, changing the composition of ant communities and affecting everything from seed dispersal to predation on other insects. Their success reveals something interesting about colony recognition. Argentine ants have very low genetic diversity in their introduced ranges, likely because few queens founded each new population. This genetic similarity may be why distant populations don't fight. They're not just acting like kin, they essentially are kin. The global supercolony raises fascinating questions. Have Argentine ants created something new in evolutionary history? A single colony spanning the world? Or is this just a temporary phenomenon, a quirk that will eventually break down? The answer remains to be written. Ants can form living bridges and rafts with their own bodies. When floods sweep through fire ant colonies in the southern United States, the ants face a deadly challenge. Water can destroy underground nests and drown the colony. But fire ants have evolved a remarkable survival strategy. They link their bodies together to form floating rafts. Workers, larvae, and the queen cluster together, gripping each other with their legs and mandibles. The raft can contain thousands of ants, all linked in a flexible, buoyant mass. Air trapped among their bodies and water-repellent coatings on their exoskeletons keep the raft afloat. It can survive for days or even weeks, drifting until it reaches dry land. The ants on the bottom of the raft are partially submerged and more stressed than those on top. But the colony rotates positions, with ants from the bottom moving to the top and vice versa. This spreads the burden across the colony, preventing any individual from drowning. Ants also form living bridges. When faced with a gap, worker ants can link their bodies to create a pathway that others can walk across. The bridge builders sacrifice their mobility temporarily for the good of the colony. When enough ants have crossed, the bridge dissolves, and those ants rejoin the group. These behaviors show stunning flexibility. Ants are not just individuals, they are construction materials, capable of reshaping their collective body to overcome obstacles. In their living structures, we see the superorganism made visible. These structures demonstrate collective problem-solving. The formation of rafts and bridges happens without central coordination. No ant directs the process. Instead, simple rules followed by individuals create complex collective behaviors. When an ant feels water rising, it seeks to link with others. When an ant encounters a gap, it positions itself to span it. From these local decisions emerges global structure. Scientists study ant rafts using mathematical models and simulations, trying to understand the rules that generate such behaviors. The goal is not just to understand ants, but to derive principles that might apply to robotics, swarm computing, and other distributed systems. Imagine tiny robots that could link together to form shapes as needed, adapting to challenges without central control. Ant-inspired algorithms could coordinate such systems, each robot following simple rules, yet collectively achieving complex goals. The ants have already solved these problems. We're just learning to read their solutions. In the collective behaviors of ants, we see intelligence that is neither in any individual nor in some mystical group mind, but in the interactions between individuals following simple rules. It is emergence, the whole becoming more than the sum of parts. Some ants explode defensively, sacrificing themselves for the colony. In the rainforests of Southeast Asia, live ants with the ultimate self-sacrifice behavior. Certain Colobopsis species, when faced with invaders they cannot defeat, contract their abdominal muscles so violently that their bodies rupture. They literally explode, spraying attackers with sticky, toxic fluid. This autothysis is fatal for the exploding ant, but it can save the colony. The sticky secretion glues enemies in place and repels others. It's a defensive mechanism of last resort, used when the colony is under dire threat and all other defenses have failed. The exploding ants are typically minor workers, smaller individuals whose loss is less damaging to the colony than losing larger workers or the queen. Their willingness to die protects their sisters and mother, ensuring the survival of shared genes even as the individual perishes. Not all ants that practice autothysis explode so dramatically. Some simply release defensive secretions when crushed, chemicals that would be contained if the ant's body remained intact. The explosive types have taken this mechanism to its extreme conclusion. To witness this behavior is to see self-sacrifice elevated to near incomprehensible levels. These ants are living bombs, willing to detonate themselves if it means the colony survives. It is altruism written in the most visceral terms possible. Ants can learn and remember through individual experience. Though their brains are tiny, ants are not simple automatons. Individual ants can learn from experience, remember locations, and modify their behavior based on what they encounter. Studies show that ants trained to associate a particular scent with food will preferentially approach that scent in future tests. Desert ants learn landmarks around their nest, using visual memory to navigate home. They can recognize specific bushes, rocks, or other features, building mental maps of their territory. When researchers move these landmarks, ants search for the nest in the wrong location, showing they were relying on memorized visual cues. Ants also show individual personality differences. Some individuals are more bold in exploring, while others are more cautious. Some respond more strongly to alarm pheromones. These personality differences can affect colony-level outcomes, with colonies benefiting from having a mix of bold and cautious individuals. The learning abilities of ants have led to debates about insect consciousness. Can a creature with fewer than 1 million neurons have subjective experiences? We may never know what, if anything, it feels like to be an ant, but their ability to learn and remember shows that intelligence doesn't require large brains. Colonies make decisions through decentralized consensus. When a colony needs to choose between multiple potential nest sites, how does it decide? There is no voting, no committee meeting, no leader making the choice. Instead, decision-making emerges from the interactions of many individuals, each assessing sites and influencing others through their behavior. Scout ants explore potential nest sites and return to recruit others through pheromone trails or direct contact. The better a site is, the more persistently scouts recruit for it. Eventually, a quorum is reached. Enough ants accumulate at one site that the collective decides this is the new home. The colony moves. This quorum sensing is a form of distributed decision-making. No single ant has complete information, yet the colony as a whole makes choices that are often optimal. Good sites attract more recruitment, building positive feedback that leads to consensus. Similar mechanisms help colonies allocate workers to different tasks. If many ants are needed for foraging, pheromone trails strengthen, recruiting more foragers. If the nursery needs attention, different signals draw workers there. The colony adapts its workforce dynamically to changing needs. It's democracy without voting, consensus without discussion. The colony feels its way toward optimal choices through the aggregate behavior of thousands of individuals, each following simple rules, none understanding the big picture. Ant brains contain fewer than 1 million neurons. The human brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons. An ant brain contains around 250,000. That's less than 1/300,000th the number. Yet with this tiny neural network, ants navigate complex environments, communicate with nestmates, learn from experience, and participate in building sophisticated societies. The ant brain, smaller than the head of a pin, is organized efficiently. Different regions handle different sensory information. The antennal lobes process smell. The optic lobes process vision. The mushroom bodies, structures involved in learning and memory, are relatively large for the brain's size, showing the importance of these functions. Despite their small brains, or perhaps because of them, ants excel at what they do. They are highly specialized, optimized for their ecological niche. They don't need to be generalists like humans. They need to be excellent at being ants. And for that, 250,000 neurons suffice. The efficiency is instructive for artificial intelligence research. If complex behaviors can emerge from networks this small, it suggests that intelligence might not require massive computational resources. Sometimes, the right architecture and rules matter more than raw processing power. Swarm intelligence allows ant colonies to solve complex problems. Individually, an ant is not particularly smart, but collectively, ant colonies display problem-solving abilities that seem intelligent. They find shortest paths between nest and food. They allocate workers efficiently across tasks. They build structures of remarkable complexity. This emergent intelligence is called swarm intelligence. The key is positive feedback and indirect communication. When ants find food, they lay pheromone trails that others follow. The most efficient path receives more traffic, strengthening the trail further. Less efficient paths fade away. Without any ant measuring distances or planning routes, the colony discovers the shortest path. This principle has inspired algorithms used in computer science. Ant colony optimization algorithms help solve problems like routing network traffic, scheduling tasks, or planning logistics. By mimicking how ants find efficient paths, computers can solve problems that are difficult for traditional programming approaches. Swarm intelligence shows that intelligence can be distributed. There is no need for centralized control or comprehensive understanding. Simple agents following simple rules can collectively solve complex problems. The wisdom emerges from the crowd. Ants show different levels of aggressiveness based on colony needs. Not all ants behave the same, even within a single colony. Individual aggressiveness varies, and colonies seem to adjust their overall aggressiveness based on circumstances. When a colony is threatened, more workers respond with defensive behaviors. When food is abundant, aggression toward intruders may decrease as the colony focuses on harvesting. Studies show that encountering hostile situations can make individual ants more aggressive in subsequent encounters, a form of learning or priming. But the colony-level aggressiveness is more than the sum of individual temperaments. It emerges from how ants interact with each other and respond to pheromones. A colony under constant attack will maintain high alertness, with more workers stationed as guards and quicker responses to threats. A peaceful colony in a resource-rich environment may relax its defenses, diverting workers to other tasks. The colony adapts its stance, like a living organism adjusting its immune response. This flexibility helps colonies survive in changing environments. Aggressiveness is a tool, deployed when needed, moderated when not. The colony finds a balance, guided by collective feedback rather than conscious strategy. Chemical mimicry allows some beetles to live inside ant colonies. Ant nests are fortresses, zealously guarded against intruders. Yet some creatures have found ways to breach these defenses through deception. Certain beetles produce chemicals that mimic ant colony odors, allowing them to live among the ants without being attacked. These myrmecophilous beetles are chemical spies, wearing the ant's own recognition signals as disguises. Some beetles do this imperfectly and are tolerated rather than accepted. Others achieve such perfect mimicry that ants treat them as colony members, even feeding them mouth to mouth. The most sophisticated myrmecophiles don't just avoid detection, they exploit the ant's social behaviors. Some beetles beg for food from workers like ant larvae do, receiving regurgitated meals. Others prey on ant brood, eating the eggs and larvae of their hosts while remaining undetected. This chemical deception has evolved independently many times, showing its effectiveness. It's an evolutionary arms race. Ants evolve better detection of intruders. Beetles evolve better mimicry. The contest continues, with some beetles achieving integration so complete they're essentially honorary ants. Army ant raiders are followed by birds that catch fleeing insects. Where army ants raid, chaos follows. Insects and other invertebrates flee before the advancing swarm, climbing vegetation or taking flight to escape. And waiting for them are antbirds, specialized species that have learned to follow army ant raids and catch the prey that the ants flush out. These birds don't eat the ants themselves. They eat the insects escaping from the ants. It's a profitable strategy. The ants do the work of finding and flushing prey, and the birds simply position themselves above the raid front to intercept the refugees. Some antbird species are so specialized they follow ant raids almost exclusively, relying on the ants for most of their food. They've learned to recognize the sounds and signs of ant raids, arriving quickly when a column is detected. Multiple bird species may gather at a single raid, forming temporary flocks united by the opportunity below. The ants mostly ignore the birds. They're focused on ground prey and see no threat from above. It's a parasitic relationship. From the ants' perspective, the birds benefit while the ants gain nothing. Yet the ants can't stop it, and the behavior has persisted for millions of years. This ecological partnership shows how one species' behavior creates opportunities for others. The ants, simply hunting for food, have become the center of a complex community of followers and opportunists. Ants clean themselves and each other meticulously. Watch an ant at rest, and you'll often see it grooming. It draws its legs through its mandibles, cleaning them. It grooms its antennae, its body, ensuring every surface is clean. This is not vanity, but survival. Chemical communication depends on clean antennae free from contamination. Ants also groom each other, particularly the queen and larvae. Workers lick and brush their nestmates, removing debris, spores, and parasites. This social grooming, called allogrooming, serves both hygienic and social functions. It spreads colony odor, reinforcing recognition cues. It removes threats before they spread. Some pathogens try to infect ant colonies, and grooming is a key defense. Workers detect infected individuals by smell and either groom them intensively or remove them from the nest. This social immunity prevents disease spread, protecting the colony even when individuals are infected. The meticulousness is remarkable. Ants spend significant time each day on hygiene, both personal and social. In their constant cleaning, they maintain the colony's health, a communal immune system in action. Cleanliness, for ants, is quite literally next to survival. They use antibiotic secretions to prevent fungal infections. Ants, especially those like leafcutters that cultivate fungus, face constant threats from fungal pathogens. To combat these, many ant species produce antibiotic compounds from specialized glands. These secretions can inhibit bacterial and fungal growth, protecting both the ant and its nest. Leafcutter ants culture a specific fungus for food, but they must prevent contamination from other fungi that could destroy their gardens. They accomplish this partly through physical removal of contaminants, but also through chemical warfare. Bacteria living on the ants' bodies produce antibiotics that suppress unwanted fungi. This three-way relationship, ants, their fungal crop, and antibiotic-producing bacteria, is a sophisticated symbiosis. Each partner benefits from the others. The ants get food. The fungus gets cultivation. The bacteria get a home and food from the ants. Together, they form a system that has functioned for millions of years. Scientists study these ant-bacteria partnerships, hoping to discover new antibiotics. In an age of drug-resistant bacteria, the ancient chemical warfare of ants might yield medicines useful to humans. The ants have been fighting pathogens for far longer than we have. They may have lessons to teach us. Ants are ecosystem engineers that affect many other species. When ants dig their nests, they don't just create homes for themselves. They transform the environment, affecting countless other species. Their tunnels aerate soil, benefiting plant roots and soil microbes. Their middens, piles of waste and debris, create nutrient hotspots that plants colonize. Their predation affects insect populations, creating ripples through food webs. Many species have evolved to associate with ant nests. Some plants grow preferentially on ant mounds, thriving in the disturbed, nutrient-rich soil. Some insects and spiders live specifically in abandoned ant nest chambers. Some lizards hunt ants or scavenge at ant middens. Remove ants from an ecosystem, and the effects cascade. Seed dispersal changes. Soil structure degrades. Some plant species decline without ant dispersal. Predator-prey dynamics shift. Ants are keystone species in many environments. Their presence disproportionately important to ecosystem function. This influence happens invisibly, beneath notice. We see forests, grasslands, gardens, but we rarely see the ants shaping them. Yet they are there, billions of tiny engineers, modifying the world, one small action at a time. Their cumulative effects, transforming entire landscapes. Certain plants provide shelter to ants in exchange for protection. Some plants have evolved hollow thorns, stems, or structures specifically to house ant colonies. These domatia, as botanists call them, are living spaces provided by the plant. In exchange, the resident ants defend the plant aggressively against herbivores, and even clear competing vegetation from around the plant. Acacia trees in Central America house pseudo-myrmex ants in their swollen thorns. The ants patrol the tree, attacking anything that touches it. They clip surrounding plants, creating clear zones that reduce competition for light and nutrients. The tree, in return, provides not just housing, but food, specialized nectaries that produce sugar, and protein-rich bodies that the ants harvest. This mutualism is so tight that neither partner does well without the other. The ants depend entirely on the tree for food and shelter. The tree, in areas where herbivore pressure is high, grows poorly without ant protection. Natural selection has bound them together. Similar relationships exist worldwide. From African acacias to Asian macaranga trees, plants and ants have formed partnerships. Each case is slightly different, evolved independently, showing that this strategy works so well that evolution has discovered it repeatedly. These mutualisms have evolved independently many times. The ant-plant partnerships we see today arose through convergent evolution. On different continents, in different plant families, similar solutions emerged. Plants provide resources. Ants provide protection. The exchange benefits both. This repeated evolution suggests that the strategy is highly favorable under certain conditions. When herbivory is intense, plants benefit enormously from having aggressive defenders. Ants, always seeking nest sites and food, readily exploit resources that plants offer. The partnership is a natural fit. Genetic studies show that these relationships are ancient. Some ant-plant mutualisms are tens of millions of years old, while others are more recent. This suggests that new partnerships continue to evolve, even as old ones persist. Evolution is ongoing, constantly experimenting with new arrangements. The diversity of these relationships is astonishing. Some plants house ants in stems, others in thorns, still others in modified leaves. Some provide only housing, others add food. Each partnership is a unique solution to the challenges of survival, evolved to fit local conditions and available partners. Ants have a lifespan ranging from weeks to decades depending on caste. Time passes differently for different ants. A male ant may live only days, born to mate, and die in a brief burst of existence. A worker ant typically lives weeks to months, laboring constantly until her body wears out. But a queen can live for 30 years or more, an ancient presence outliving generations. This variation in lifespan is extreme even by insect standards. It reflects the different roles each caste plays. Males need only survive long enough to mate. Workers are expendable, their loss acceptable as long as the colony thrives. But the queen is irreplaceable, at least in species that cannot rear new queens from worker larvae. The factors affecting lifespan are complex. Genetics play a role, but so do environment, nutrition, and workload. Foragers, who face predators and harsh weather, typically die younger than nurses who spend their lives inside the protected nest. Caste and role intertwine to determine how long each ant lives. To think that within a single colony, some individuals measure their existence in days, while others measure it in decades, is humbling. Time is relative, and for ants, it's determined by duty. Queens can store sperm from mating flights for their entire lives. When a queen mates during her nuptial flight, she stores the sperm she receives in a specialized organ called the spermatheca. This sperm can remain viable for years, even decades. The queen uses it to fertilize eggs throughout her life, drawing on sperm received in that single brief flight. This means a queen that mates once may produce millions of offspring over 30 years from that single mating event. The sperm storage is remarkably efficient, with mechanisms to keep sperm alive and healthy. It's a biological marvel, preserving genetic material across a significant fraction of a human lifetime. The implications are significant. The queen's choice of mates during that brief flight determines the genetic diversity of her entire colony. If she mates with only one male, all her offspring are half-siblings. If she mates with multiple males, genetic diversity increases, which can benefit the colony's health and adaptability. Some species have queens that mate with dozens of males, storing diverse sperm. This polyandry increases genetic variation within the colony. It's another strategy that evolution has tested, finding that diversity often benefits the collective, even if it complicates the genetic calculations of cooperation. Some ants can reproduce through cloning. Most ants reproduce sexually, with queens producing offspring from fertilized eggs. But some species have evolved stranger strategies. In certain populations of little fire ants and other species, queens can produce female offspring without fertilization through a process called parthenogenesis. These clonal offspring are genetic copies of their mother. Over generations, this can lead to colonies composed of clones, all genetically identical except for random mutations. It's an unusual strategy for a social insect, sacrificing genetic diversity for other advantages. Why would this evolve? One hypothesis is that it allows rapid colonization. A single queen can start a colony without needing to have mated, useful for invasive species spreading to new areas. Another possibility is that it prevents genetic conflict within the colony, since all workers are clones. The long-term consequences of clonal reproduction are unclear. Genetic diversity usually benefits populations by providing variation for natural selection to act on. Clonal populations might be more vulnerable to diseases or environmental changes. Yet some clonal ant lineages have persisted successfully, suggesting they've found a viable, if unusual, path. Zombie ants, controlled by parasitic fungi, behave abnormally before dying. In rainforests worldwide, a horror story plays out on a small scale. Ants become infected with fungi from the Ophiocordyceps genus. The fungus invades the ant's body and somehow manipulates its behavior. The infected ant leaves its colony and climbs vegetation, eventually clamping onto a leaf or twig with its mandibles in a characteristic death grip. There, the ant dies. But the fungus is just beginning. It grows through the ant's body, eventually erupting from the head as a fruiting body that releases spores to infect other ants passing below. The ant's body becomes a vehicle for fungal reproduction, a zombie servant, even in death. The mechanism of behavior control is not fully understood, but research suggests the fungus secretes chemicals that affect the ant's nervous system. It doesn't control the brain directly, but influences it enough to compel the altered behavior. The specificity is remarkable. The ant climbs to a very particular height and location optimal for spore dispersal. Ant colonies have evolved defenses. They can detect infected individuals by smell and either clean them intensively or carry them far from the nest to die. It's a quarantine system, preventing the fungus from spreading through the colony. The battle between ant and fungus has raged for millions of years, each side adapting to counter the other. Ant colonies can regulate temperature through collective behavior. Inside an ant nest, temperature matters. Larvae develop best within a specific temperature range. Too cold, and development slows. Too hot, and they may die. Yet ants are cold-blooded and cannot generate heat metabolically like mammals. How do they regulate temperature? The answer is collective behavior. Workers move brood between chambers at different temperatures, placing them in warm zones when heat is needed, cool zones when it's not. They open or close nest entrances to regulate airflow. They bask in sunlight, then return to the nest, carrying warmth with them. Some species take this further. Leaf-cutting ants generate heat through the metabolic activity of their fungal gardens. They manage this carefully, adjusting the garden to maintain optimal temperatures. It's climate control through biological processes. Agriculture serving double duty. The precision is impressive. Studies show that brood chambers are often maintained within a degree or two of optimal temperature, despite fluctuations in outside conditions. The colony acts as a distributed thermostat. Thousands of workers making small adjustments that sum to precise control. Ant wars between neighboring colonies can last for years. Territory matters in the ant world. When two colonies of the same species encounter each other, the border becomes a battlefield. Skirmishes break out, workers fighting to defend their territory or expand it. These conflicts can persist for years, a grinding war of attrition. The fighting is fierce despite the small scale. Ants grapple with mandibles, inject venom, and pull each other apart limb from limb. Bodies accumulate along the border. Yet neither side achieves decisive victory. The war simply continues, flaring up and dying down in cycles. Why do they fight? Resources are part of it. Territory means access to food and nesting sites. But there's also a genetic component. Ants are hostile to non-nestmates. and their recognition systems make diplomacy impossible. Different colonies are enemies by default, programmed to fight simply because they're different. The cost of these wars is significant. Workers die in combat, energy is spent on fighting rather than foraging, and constant conflict depletes both sides. Yet neither can afford to stop fighting, because retreat means losing territory and resources. It's a tragedy of competition. Both sides locked in conflict. Neither can win. Argentine ants displace native ant species through numerical superiority. When Argentine ants invade a new area, native ant populations often collapse. The invaders don't necessarily win individual fights. Instead, they simply outnumber the natives so overwhelmingly that resistance becomes futile. Where a native colony might field hundreds of workers, the Argentine supercolony fields thousands or millions. The natives fight bravely, defending their territory against the intruders, but they are overwhelmed. Argentine ants recruit rapidly to any conflict, and their interconnected nests mean they can draw reinforcements from vast areas. Native ants fight as individual colonies. Argentine ants fight as a united front. Over time, native species disappear from invaded areas. The ecosystem changes. Plants that depended on native ants for seed dispersal may decline. Insects that competed with or preyed on native ants must adjust to the new dominant species. The cascade effects can be significant. This shows the power of cooperation at large scales. Argentine ants succeed not through superior fighting ability, but through their unusual social structure that allows unprecedented cooperation. They've eliminated the cost of intercolony conflict and redirected that energy toward competition with other species. It's a winning strategy, at least in the short term. Some ant species conduct slave raids at night. Under cover of darkness, raiding parties emerge from slave-making ant colonies. They move with purpose toward neighboring nests of target species. Their goal is not food or territory, but pupae, the next generation of the species they enslave. The raids can be violent. If defenders resist, the raiders kill them with powerful stings or toxic sprays. But the raiders focus on breaking into brood chambers and stealing pupae. They carry them back to their own nest, where these stolen young will emerge and be imprinted on the slave-maker's colony odor. Different slave-making species use different strategies. Some conduct quick lightning raids. Others lay siege, overwhelming defenses through persistence. Some species have become so dependent on slaves that they have lost the ability to feed themselves or care for their own brood without enslaved workers. The morality of calling this slavery is debated. The enslaved ants don't know they're serving another species. They haven't been coerced in any conscious sense. Yet the parallel to human slavery is uncomfortable, a reminder that evolution can favor strategies we find abhorrent. Trapjaw ants have mandibles that snap shut faster than a bullet. Among the fastest movements in the animal kingdom are the mandibles of trapjaw ants. These ants have evolved spring-loaded jaws that can snap shut in less than a millisecond, closing at speeds exceeding 140 miles per hour. It's one of the fastest appendage movements ever recorded. The mechanism is elegant. The ant holds its mandibles open, compressing powerful muscles, while a latch keeps the jaws from closing. When triggered by contact with prey or threat, the latch releases, and the mandibles snap shut with tremendous force. The strike is so fast that prey has no time to react. These jaws serve multiple purposes. They catch prey with devastating efficiency, but they can also be aimed at the ground. When an ant snaps its jaws against the substrate, the recoil launches the ant into the air, a defensive escape jump that can throw the ant several centimeters, many times its body length. The evolution of such a system required multiple coordinated changes: stronger muscles, effective latches, and neural circuits fast enough to control millisecond movements. Yet natural selection achieved it, creating a weapon and tool that makes trapjaw ants formidable hunters despite their small size. Ants can carry deceased nestmates to burial areas. When a worker ant dies inside the nest, other workers detect the chemical changes that accompany death. The corpse releases oleic acid and other compounds as it begins to decompose. Living ants detect these chemicals and respond. They pick up the corpse and carry it away from the nest. Colonies maintain burial areas, middens where they deposit dead ants, food waste, and other refuse. These middens are typically located away from the nest to prevent disease transmission. It's a sanitation system, keeping the living space clean and reducing pathogen risk. Interestingly, if you put oleic acid on a living ant, its nestmates will pick it up and carry it to the midden, despite its struggles. The chemical signal overrides their perception of the ant as alive. When the oleic acid wears off or is cleaned away, the ant is accepted back into the nest, resurrected from social death. This undertaker behavior is another example of decentralized colony maintenance. No one assigns ants to corpse disposal duty. Workers simply respond to chemical cues, and the collective result is a clean nest. From simple rules emerges necessary hygiene. Pheromone signals degrade over time, allowing for dynamic communication. Ant pheromones are ephemeral. They evaporate, diffuse, or break down chemically over time. This might seem like a flaw, but it's actually a feature. The degradation of pheromone signals allows ant communication to be dynamic and adaptive. Consider a trail to food. As long as ants walk the trail, they refresh the pheromone, keeping it strong. But if the food runs out and ants stop using the trail, the pheromone fades. Within hours, the trail disappears, and the colony's attention can shift elsewhere. This automatic reset prevents the colony from wasting effort on exhausted resources. Alarm pheromones degrade even faster. When an ant releases an alarm signal, nearby nestmates respond with defensive behavior, but within minutes, the signal dissipates. This prevents the colony from remaining in constant high alert. The response matches the duration of the threat. Different pheromones have different longevities, calibrated to their function. Trail pheromones last hours. Queen pheromones persist for days. The temporal dimension of chemical communication is as important as the chemical itself, allowing ants to send messages that are both informative and time-sensitive. Lost ants that can't find pheromone trails eventually wander back. Watch an ant that has somehow gotten separated from its trail. It moves in looping search patterns, trying to relocate the chemical highway home. Sometimes it succeeds quickly. Other times it searches for hours. But given enough time, most ants find their way back to the nest or to a trail. This ability relies on multiple backup navigation systems. If pheromone trails are lost, ants can use visual landmarks if they remember them. They can use the sun's position for compass orientation. Some species can even remember the general direction of the nest and head that way if all else fails. The search patterns are not random. Ants use strategies similar to Levi flights, moving in straight lines of varying lengths, interspersed with sharp turns. This pattern is mathematically efficient for finding lost targets. It's been discovered in many foraging animals, from sharks to bees, suggesting evolution has converged on this solution repeatedly. Not all lost ants make it home. Predators catch some. Others die of exhaustion or exposure. Being lost is dangerous for a creature so small, but enough survive that the risk is acceptable. The colony can spare some losses in exchange for the benefits of having workers range far in search of resources. Ants follow optimized foraging strategies to maximize food collection. Foraging ants face optimization problems. Should they accept small food items found nearby, or hold out for larger rewards farther away? Should they recruit nestmates immediately, or scout further first? Should they specialize on one food type, or remain generalists? Different species solve these problems differently, but patterns emerge. Many ants use threshold-based decision rules. If a food source exceeds a certain quality threshold, the ant recruits heavily. Below that threshold, recruitment is weak or absent. This focuses colony effort on worthwhile resources. Ants also show marginal value theorem behavior, predicted by optimal foraging theory. They exploit a food patch until returns diminish to the point where searching for a new patch becomes more profitable. Then they leave. The colony-level effect is efficient harvesting that doesn't overexploit any single source. These strategies emerge without conscious calculation. They're built into ant behavior by natural selection, tested over millions of years and billions of ant colonies. The colonies that foraged efficiently left more offspring. The strategies we see today are the winners of that long evolutionary competition, approaching theoretical optimality through trial and error across deep time. Certain ant species show evidence of teaching behavior. Teaching, in the biological sense, requires that one individual modify its behavior to help another learn, at temporary cost to itself. For a long time, teaching was thought to be unique to humans and perhaps a few other large-brained species. But research on tandem-running ants suggests otherwise. In some species, when an experienced forager finds food, it leads a naive ant to the location through tandem running. The leader moves slowly, allowing the follower to keep up and learn the route. If the follower falls behind, the leader stops and waits, an apparent cost in time. The follower learns the location and can find it independently in the future. This meets the criteria for teaching. The leader modifies its behavior, moving slowly, waiting to facilitate learning by the follower, at a cost, time and energy, and the follower gains knowledge. It's rudimentary compared to human teaching, but it's functionally similar. The discovery of teaching in ants expanded our understanding of this behavior's evolution. It suggests that teaching can evolve whenever the benefits of information transmission outweigh the costs of slowed movement or other sacrifices. Brain size is not the limiting factor. Even creatures with tiny nervous systems can teach when natural selection favors it. Ant colonies recover from worker loss through flexible labor allocation. If a colony suddenly loses many foragers, perhaps to predation or bad weather, does it collapse? Usually not. The colony adapts, reallocating workers from other tasks to forage. Young ants that would normally stay in the nest may begin foraging earlier. The colony adjusts its workforce to match current needs. This flexibility is remarkable. It suggests that workers are not rigidly programmed into single roles, but can switch tasks based on colony needs. Some of this is age-based. Young ants typically work in the nest, while older ants forage, but the transitions can be accelerated or delayed based on what the colony requires. The mechanisms behind this flexibility involve feedback. If few foragers are returning with food, this signals a need for more foragers. Workers respond to this signal by transitioning to foraging roles. If the nursery is understaffed, signals from that area recruit workers to brood care. The colony self-regulates, maintaining balance across tasks. This adaptability allows colonies to survive disasters that would cripple less flexible organizations. Ant colonies are robust because they are responsive, continuously adjusting to maintain function even as conditions change. It's resilience through distributed control. Some desert ants can find their way home across completely featureless terrain. Imagine being dropped in the middle of a flat, featureless desert. No landmarks, no trails, just sand in every direction. Could you find your way back to a specific spot? Desert ants do this routinely. They use path integration, tracking every turn and distance as they search for food. This requires integrating angular velocity and speed continuously, updating a mental vector that points home. When ready to return, they simply follow this vector, walking nearly straight back to the nest entrance. The accuracy is remarkable. After foraging in complex, wandering paths that may cover hundreds of meters, ants return to within centimeters of the nest entrance. They accomplish this using visual flow patterns across their compound eyes to measure distance, and using celestial cues to measure direction. It's navigation at the limits of what small brains can achieve. The system occasionally makes errors. Ants sometimes search in the wrong spot if their path integration drifts. But overall, it works well enough that these ants thrive in environments where other navigation strategies would fail. They carry their map in their heads, updated step by step, guiding them home across trackless sand. Ants adjust their foraging times to avoid heat or predators. Not all ants forage at the same time of day. Some species are diurnal, active in daylight. Others are nocturnal, emerging only after dark. Still others are crepuscular, active during dawn and dusk when temperatures are moderate. These patterns reflect evolutionary adaptations to environmental challenges and competition. In hot deserts, many ants forage during cooler morning hours, retreating underground as temperatures rise. Some, like the Saharan silver ants mentioned earlier, do the opposite, exploiting midday heat when competitors cannot function. It's an extreme niche, but it's available for those adapted to it. Nocturnal foraging can avoid both heat and visual predators, but it requires different navigation strategies, since sun-based compass cues aren't available. Some nocturnal ants use star patterns or moonlight. Others rely more heavily on pheromone trails and memorized routes. The timing of foraging also affects what food is available. Some seeds fall from plants during specific times. Some insects are active only at night. By matching foraging times to food availability, ants increase their efficiency. Evolution has fine-tuned when each species works, partitioning time just as they partition space and food types. The study of ant behavior has influenced computer algorithms and robotics. Ant-inspired algorithms are used in telecommunications, logistics, and robotics. The principle is simple. Simple agents, following simple rules, can solve complex problems without central coordination. This approach, called swarm intelligence, has proven powerful for distributed systems. Ant colony optimization algorithms help route data through networks, finding efficient paths just as ants find efficient trails to food. These algorithms are used by major telecommunications companies. Similar approaches optimize warehouse operations, vehicle routing, and scheduling tasks. In robotics, swarm algorithms allow groups of simple robots to coordinate without central control. Each robot follows local rules and responds to neighbors, yet the swarm accomplishes complex tasks. This is useful for search and rescue, exploration of hazardous environments, and even potential space missions, where communication delays make central control impractical. The inspiration from ants is more than metaphor. Researchers study actual ant behavior, translate the rules into algorithms, and test whether similar principles work for artificial systems. Often they do. Ants have spent millions of years solving coordination problems. Their solutions transfer surprisingly well to human technology. Ant colonies exhibit behavior similar to neural networks. There's a striking parallel between ant colonies and neural networks. In a brain, neurons fire based on inputs from other neurons. No single neuron understands what the brain is thinking, yet thoughts emerge from their collective activity. In an ant colony, individual ants respond to local cues. No ant understands the colony's strategy, yet coordinated behavior emerges from their interactions. Both systems process information in distributed ways. Both show learning and adaptation. Both can be damaged yet continue functioning, their distributed nature providing resilience. The analogy is not perfect. Ant colonies and brains differ in many ways, but the similarities are illuminating. Some researchers study ant colonies explicitly as distributed information processing systems, using concepts from neuroscience and computer science. Others use neural network models to simulate colony behavior. The cross-pollination goes both ways, with insights from each field informing the other. This suggests that certain organizational principles apply across scales and substrates. Whether you're coordinating neurons in a brain or ants in a colony, similar solutions emerge. Distributed processing, positive and negative feedback, thresholds, and redundancy. Intelligence, in some form, can arise from many different architectures. Each ant only needs to follow simple rules for complex colony behavior to emerge. This is perhaps the most important insight about ants. The magnificent structures they build, the efficient foraging they achieve, the social organization they maintain, none of it requires complex cognition from individuals. Each ant follows simple, genetically programmed rules. Complexity emerges from interactions. An individual ant might follow rules like, if you smell food pheromone, follow it. When you find food, carry it home while laying trail pheromone. If you encounter an intruder, release alarm pheromone and attack. Simple rules. Yet when thousands of ants follow these rules, colonies find optimal paths, allocate labor efficiently, and defend against threats. This emergence of complexity from simplicity is a profound principle, applicable far beyond ants. It appears in physics, chemistry, biology, and social systems. It's why markets can coordinate production without central planning, why ecosystems self-organize without a designer, why the universe itself generates structure from simple physical laws. Ants are a tangible demonstration of this principle. Watch them, and you watch emergence in action. From simple rules emerges something that appears intelligent, purposeful, coordinated. It's a reminder that complexity doesn't require complexity to build it. Sometimes, simplicity is enough. Ants communicate danger through chemical alarm signals. When an ant encounters a threat, it doesn't call for help. It releases alarm pheromones, chemical signals that spread rapidly through air and on surfaces. Nearby ants detect these chemicals and respond immediately, rushing toward the source or adopting defensive postures. Different species have different alarm pheromones with different effects. Some cause ants to attack aggressively. Others trigger retreat and nest defense. Some alarm signals recruit nearby workers. Others send everyone into hiding. The specific response is tailored to each species' defensive strategy. The alarm system is sensitive and rapid. Within seconds of one ant being crushed or attacked, dozens of nearby nestmates can be alerted and responding. This quick response can mean the difference between stopping an intruder and losing the nest. But false alarms have costs. If ants responded to every minor disturbance, they'd waste time and energy on non-threats. The threshold for alarm pheromone release is calibrated by evolution. Serious threats trigger full alarm. Minor disturbances may trigger only localized, subdued responses. The colony's security system has sensitivity adjustments built in. Ants show species-specific nest recognition through chemical profiles. Every ant colony has a unique chemical signature, a blend of hydrocarbons that covers each ant's exoskeleton. This signature is the colony's identity, its passport and password combined. Ants can distinguish their own colony's signature from others with remarkable precision. The signature is partly genetic but also environmental. Young ants absorb chemicals from their nestmates and the nest material itself. This learning process creates a shared colony odor that all members carry. It's how guards at the nest entrance identify returning foragers and how workers recognize larvae as their own. Different species have different sets of chemical compounds in their profiles. This creates species-specific signatures in addition to colony-specific ones. An ant can detect not just whether another ant is a nestmate, but also whether it's even the same species. The chemical diversity is enormous, creating a rich landscape of identity signals. Research into these chemical profiles has applications beyond understanding ants. The same principles apply to other social insects, and even to human immune system recognition. The ant's ability to distinguish self from non-self through chemistry mirrors our own body's immune recognition, a case of convergent evolution solving similar problems. Some ant species are entirely dependent on raiding others for survival. In the world of slave-making ants, some species have crossed a threshold of no return. They have become so specialized for raiding that they can no longer survive without enslaved workers. Their mandibles have evolved into weapons useful only for combat, too specialized to handle food or care for brood. These obligate slave makers face an unusual problem. Their success depends on finding and successfully raiding host colonies. If hosts become rare, the slave makers face collapse. They are parasites that can drive their hosts toward local extinction, potentially causing their own decline in turn. The most specialized slave makers conduct raids with military precision. Scouts locate host nests and recruit raiding parties. The raiders storm the nest, killing or driving off defenders with chemical weapons or powerful stings. They steal pupae and carry them home, where the emerging workers will serve a colony, not genetically their own. This extreme specialization shows evolution's ability to create bizarre lifestyles. These ants have committed fully to parasitism, burning bridges behind them. They cannot go back to independence. They must raid or die. It's an evolutionary extreme, as dependent on their slaves as a vampire is on blood. Leafcutter colonies can consume a cow's weight in vegetation annually. The agricultural output of leafcutter ants is staggering. A mature colony containing 8 million workers can harvest and process as much vegetation as a large cow. Day after day, the ants cut leaves, carry them underground, process them into fungal substrate, and tend their gardens. The scale of this agriculture is difficult to overstate. These ants are major herbivores in their ecosystems, competing with vertebrate browsers for vegetation. Their selectivity shapes forest composition. Plants invest in chemical defenses specifically to deter leafcutter ants. The evolutionary pressure is intense. The fungi the ants cultivate are efficient decomposers, breaking down tough plant material into digestible nutrients. This allows the ants to access energy locked in leaves that many insects cannot digest. The partnership with fungi makes leafcutter ants successful herbivores, despite being primarily carnivorous, fungal feeding by nature. Looking at a leafcutter trail, watching the endless stream of leaf fragments moving underground, it's easy to feel you're witnessing an industry. And you are. It's agriculture on a massive scale, operated by creatures each weighing less than a grain of rice. Together, they rival large mammals in their environmental impact. Ants have evolved specialized shapes for different tasks. Look closely at the workers in a large ant colony, and you may notice they're not all the same size. Many species show worker polymorphism, with individuals varying greatly in size and sometimes in shape. This physical variation reflects task specialization. In leafcutter ants, tiny minims ride on leaf fragments carried by larger media workers, defending the leaf bearers from parasitic flies. Medium-sized ants do most of the foraging and leaf cutting. Large-headed majors guard the nest with their powerful mandibles. Each form is suited to its role. Some species have even more extreme specialization. Honeypot repletes, swollen with stored food, barely resemble typical ants. Soldier ants in some species develop enormous heads filled with jaw muscles, making them formidable fighters but poorly suited for most other tasks. This polymorphism arises through differential feeding during larval development. The genes are the same, but environmental signals during growth determine which form emerges. The colony can thus adjust its workforce composition based on needs, producing more soldiers when threatened or more foragers when food is abundant. Some worker ants can develop into replacement queens in queenless colonies. For most ant species, the death of the queen means the slow death of the colony. Without her, no new workers are born, and the colony gradually dwindles. But some species have evolved a backup system. Workers can activate dormant reproductive potential and become replacement queens. These replacement queens, called gamergates, may not look exactly like original queens. They might lack wings or have different body proportions, but they can mate and lay fertilized eggs, maintaining the colony's reproduction. This ability provides insurance against queen loss. The transition from worker to gamergate involves physiological changes. Ovaries that were non-functional develop and begin producing eggs. Behavior changes too, with the gamergate reducing or stopping foraging and other worker tasks to focus on egg laying. Pheromones shift to suppress other workers from also becoming reproductive. Not all workers can make this transition, and not all species allow it. In many cases, only a few workers have the potential, and they compete aggressively for the role. But the existence of this flexibility shows that the caste system, seemingly rigid, can have hidden plasticity. Worker sterility is not always permanent. Trapjaw ants use their powerful mandibles to launch themselves away from threats. The same mandibles that trapjaw ants use to catch prey double as an escape mechanism. When threatened, these ants can aim their mandibles at the ground and trigger them. The force of the mandibles snapping shut against the substrate launches the ant into the air, sometimes several centimeters high and many body lengths away. This escape jump can move the ant away from a predator's attack faster than running. It's particularly effective against predators that strike suddenly, like antlions or spider ambushes. The ant is gone before the attack lands, catapulted to safety by its own jaws. The behavior requires precise control. The ant must orient its head correctly and time the release perfectly. Get it wrong, and the jump could send the ant in the wrong direction or even injure it. But trapjaw ants have mastered this technique, making them difficult prey despite their small size. This dual-purpose use of mandibles, both weapon and ejection seat, illustrates evolution's creativity in repurposing structures. Natural selection builds on what exists, finding new functions for old features. The mandibles evolved for hunting, but their power proved useful for escape as well, so both functions were retained. Ant fossils show remarkably little change over millions of years. When paleontologists find ant fossils from 50 million years ago, they often look remarkably similar to modern species. The basic body plan, segmented body, 6 legs, antennae, narrow waist, has remained stable across vast spans of time. Some fossil ants could almost be mistaken for contemporary species. This conservatism suggests that ants found a successful formula early and stuck with it. The basic ant design works so well that major changes are rarely advantageous. Natural selection maintains the tried and true, tweaking details but preserving the overall architecture. That said, ants have diversified tremendously in behavior and ecology, even while maintaining similar forms. The same basic body plan serves leaf-cutting farmers, nomadic hunters, seed-harvesting granivores, and countless other lifestyles. Form has stayed constant, while function has proliferated. This pattern appears throughout evolution. Once a successful body plan emerges, it tends to persist, even as species radiate into new niches and behaviors. The ant body, it seems, is one of evolution's enduring successes, good enough that improving on it is difficult. Antarctica is the only continent without native ant populations. Ants have conquered nearly every environment on Earth, but they cannot establish on the frozen continent of Antarctica. The extreme cold, ice coverage, and lack of vegetation make it impossible for ant colonies to survive. There are no native ants, and attempts to establish them would fail immediately. This absence defines one of the few limits to ant expansion. They need liquid water, organic matter, and temperatures, at least occasionally, above freezing. Antarctica provides none of these reliably. Even if ants were introduced, they could not dig nests in permanent ice or find food in the sterile landscape. Interestingly, ants do reach some subantarctic islands. As climate changes and some areas warm slightly, researchers watch to see if ants might one day establish on the continent's edges. Invasive species spread by human activity could potentially colonize warmer coastal areas or regions near research stations. For now, Antarctica stands as the one major landmass beyond ant reach, a frozen exception, proving the rule of ant ubiquity. Everywhere else on Earth, if there's soil and vegetation, there are almost certainly ants beneath the surface, pursuing their ancient ways. Ants taste primarily through their antennae and feet. Ants experience the world very differently from humans. Their primary sense for detecting food and chemicals is not taste in our sense, but chemoreception through specialized sensors on their antennae and feet. As an ant walks, it constantly samples the chemical landscape. Antennae are covered with chemoreceptors, tiny structures that detect specific molecules. Different receptors respond to different chemicals, allowing ants to distinguish sugars from proteins, friend from foe, alarm pheromones from trail pheromones. The antennal tapping you see when ants meet is them smelling each other. Their feet also have chemoreceptors, allowing ants to taste the ground as they walk. This helps them follow pheromone trails without stopping to specifically smell them. They walk on their own communication network, reading messages left by others through their footsteps. This chemical sense is far more sensitive and sophisticated than human taste. Ants can detect pheromones at concentrations equivalent to a few molecules and distinguish between thousands of different compounds. Their world is a rich tapestry of scents, where every surface carries information and every touch conveys meaning. Some ant venom contains powerful neurotoxins. The stings of certain ant species deliver more than just pain. Their venom contains neurotoxins, chemicals that disrupt nervous system function in prey and predators alike. These toxins have been refined by millions of years of evolution into highly effective weapons. Bullet ant venom contains ponerotoxin, a compound that affects voltage-gated sodium channels in neurons. This causes sustained firing of pain nerves, creating the legendary, intense, long-lasting pain of their sting. The toxin is effectively weaponized suffering, designed to teach predators to leave these ants alone. Fire ant venom contains alkaloids that are both painful and cytotoxic, damaging cells directly. In large doses or in sensitive individuals, fire ant venom can cause serious allergic reactions or tissue damage. The venom of harvester ants contains similar compounds, some as toxic as cobra venom, milligram for milligram. These venoms serve dual purposes: predation and defense. Small prey injected with neurotoxins are quickly paralyzed. Large predators learn through painful experience to avoid these ants. The same weapon works across scales, from hunting insects to deterring bears, a testament to its effectiveness. Queen ants have wings before their mating flight, but lose them afterward. When virgin queens emerge from the pupae, they are winged, ready for their single flight. These wings are well-developed, functional structures that will carry them to mating swarms, but they are temporary, a feature needed only once. After mating, the queen returns to Earth. One of her first acts is to tear off her own wings. She grips them with her legs and pulls, breaking them off at special weak points designed for this purpose. The wings are left behind, no longer needed for her underground life. This wing removal is dramatic and decisive. The queen cannot fly again. She commits to the terrestrial realm, to digging a chamber and starting a colony. The grounded queen is now entirely dependent on her ability to found a successful colony. She has burned her bridges, quite literally breaking off her means of escape. The discarded wings are often found near new nest sites, small transparent membranes lying on the ground. They are relics of transformation, evidence of the moment a flying reproductive became a founding queen. In those fallen wings lies the commitment to Earth, the choice to build rather than wander. Ants groom their antennae constantly to keep sensors clean. Watch an ant at rest, and you'll see it repeatedly draw its antennae through its forelegs, cleaning them meticulously. This grooming is not cosmetic but essential. Antennae are an ant's primary sense organs, and contamination can be catastrophic. Dirt, pollen, spores, or other particles coating antennae can block chemoreceptors, making the ant functionally nose-blind. An ant that cannot smell properly, cannot follow trails, recognize nestmates, detect food, or respond to alarm signals. It becomes isolated from the colony's chemical communication network. The grooming behavior is stereotyped and frequent. Ants have specialized structures on their forelegs, like tiny combs, designed specifically for cleaning antennae. Each antenna is drawn through these combs in regular strokes, removing accumulated debris. The cleaned antennae are then immediately ready to sense the chemical world again. This constant maintenance shows how critical chemical communication is to ant life. In our visual, acoustic world, losing smell would be inconvenient but manageable. For an ant, losing chemical sense would be like a human going blind and deaf simultaneously. They groom because they must, maintaining the senses that connect them to their colony and their world. Weaver ants can form chains of dozens of individuals. When weaver ants need to pull two leaves together, they create chains of their own bodies spanning the gap. One ant grips the edge of one leaf, another ant grips that ant, a third grips the second, and so on, forming a living chain. The ants pull together, gradually drawing the leaves closer. These chains can contain dozens of individuals, all holding each other securely. The weight and pulling force are distributed across the chain, allowing collectively they achieve what no individual could. It's a structure made of living bodies, flexible yet strong, temporary yet effective. The coordination is impressive. Somehow, ants know when to join a chain, where to position themselves, and when the chain has succeeded and can disperse. There's no director, no blueprint, just many individuals responding to local cues and producing a functional structure. Once leaves are close enough, other ants bring larvae and use their silk to stitch the leaves together permanently. The chains dissolve, workers returning to other tasks, their bodies released from architectural duty. The nest remains, a structure made possible by this remarkable cooperative construction technique. Some ants release alarm pheromones from special glands when threatened. Alarm pheromones don't just appear magically. They're produced in specialized glands and released when specific triggers occur. Different ant species have glands in different body locations, each designed to dispense alarm chemicals efficiently during threats. Many ants have mandibular glands in their heads that release alarm pheromones when they bite an intruder. The pheromone spreads from the attack site, recruiting nestmates to the exact location of danger. It's a targeted alarm system, calling help precisely where needed. Others have pygidial glands at the tip of their abdomen. When threatened, they raise their abdomens and spray alarm chemicals. The spray can travel farther than diffusion alone, creating a wider alarm radius. Some species can aim these sprays with surprising accuracy. The chemical composition of alarm pheromones varies by species, but many share some common compounds. This can lead to interesting effects. Sometimes, an alarm in one ant species triggers defensive behavior in nearby ants of different species, a kind of eavesdropping on others' chemical conversations. The shared danger leads to shared alarm languages. Ants recycle nutrients by breaking down organic matter. In the endless cycle of life and death, ants play crucial roles as decomposers. They carry dead insects into their nests, dismember them, feed on them, and excrete waste. This process breaks down complex organic compounds into simpler nutrients that enrich the soil. Ant middens, the waste piles where colonies deposit refuse, become nutrient hotspots. Plants growing near middens often show increased growth, benefiting from the concentrated nutrients. Seeds that germinate in middens have advantages over those in regular soil. The ants, without intending it, fertilize their surroundings. Some ants are particularly important decomposers. Fungus-growing ants process enormous amounts of leaf material through their gardens, essentially composting it. The spent fungal substrate, when eventually discarded, is rich in nutrients. Other species feed directly on dead wood or other detritus, accelerating its breakdown. Without ants and other decomposers, dead organic matter would accumulate. Nutrients would remain locked in corpses, and ecosystems would gradually suffocate in their own waste. Ants are part of nature's recycling system, ensuring that death feeds life, that endings become beginnings. Worker ants emerge from pupae already knowing their duties. When a worker ant emerges from its pupal case, it already possesses the instincts it needs. There is no childhood, no learning period. The behaviors required for colony life, tending brood, following trails, responding to pheromones, are genetically programmed, ready to execute from day one. This is different from many mammals, which must learn most behaviors through experience. Ant behaviors are largely innate, hardwired into their nervous systems by millions of years of natural selection. Each ant hatches knowing its role, carrying within itself the accumulated wisdom of its lineage. That said, ants do have some learning ability, and individual experience does matter. Young workers often start with safer tasks inside the nest, before graduating to riskier outside work. They learn locations, memorize routes, and remember food sources. But the basic toolkit of ant behaviors is present from emergence. This pre-programmed knowledge is both strength and limitation. Ants can function immediately, requiring no training period. But they also cannot easily adapt to situations radically different from what their evolution prepared them for. They are specialists, exquisitely adapted to specific circumstances. Some ant species practice agriculture more complex than simple fungus farming. While leafcutter fungus farming is impressive, some ant species practice even more complex agriculture. They maintain multiple crops simultaneously, rotate cultivation areas, manage pest species, and even practice selective breeding of their fungal crops across generations. Certain Atini ants cultivate multiple strains of fungus, maintaining diversity that makes their gardens more resilient to disease. They also culture bacteria that produce antibiotics, actively managing a three-way symbiosis between ants, fungus, and bacteria. It's agriculture, with integrated pest management, developed millions of years before humans conceived of such strategies. These ants also show behaviors analogous to crop rotation. They establish new garden chambers while letting old ones rest or be used for waste disposal. This prevents pathogen buildup that might occur if the same space was continuously cultivated. The parallel to human farming practices is striking. Research into ant agriculture has revealed practices that human farmers are only recently adopting. The ants have worked out sustainable farming through evolutionary trial and error. Their success over millions of years suggests we might learn from their methods, applying ant-inspired strategies to human agriculture. Pheromone trails can branch and merge, creating complex network patterns. An ant trail is rarely a simple line from nest to food. Trails branch, creating decision points. They merge, combining traffic from different sources. They form loops and shortcuts. The resulting network can be remarkably complex, yet it emerges from simple rules followed by individual ants. When multiple food sources exist, trails branch to each one. The strength of each branch reflects the quality and abundance of the food at its end. Better resources attract more traffic, strengthening their trail branches. Poor resources see their branches fade as ants stop using them. These trail networks show self-organization. No ant designs the network. No one decides where branches should form. Yet the collective result is often close to optimal, efficiently connecting the nest to all valuable resources with minimal wasted movement. It's a solution to a complex network optimization problem, solved by pheromones and footsteps. Engineers study ant trail networks for insights into designing communication networks and transportation systems. The principles that make ant trails efficient, distributed control, positive feedback, dynamic adaptation, apply to human-built networks as well. The ants pioneered solutions we're still learning to implement. Ant colonies show seasonal cycles in activity and reproduction. Many ant species don't maintain constant activity year-round. They respond to seasonal changes, scaling back operations during unfavorable conditions and ramping up during good times. In temperate regions, colonies often become dormant or semi-dormant during winter, conserving energy when foraging is impossible. Reproduction also follows seasonal patterns. New queens and males are typically produced once per year, timed to environmental cues. This ensures that nuptial flights occur when conditions favor dispersal and new colony founding. The timing varies by species and region, but the seasonal pulse is common. Some tropical ants show less pronounced seasonality, but even they respond to wet and dry seasons. Colonies may increase foraging during rains, when food is abundant, then reduce activity during droughts. The colony breathes with the seasons, expanding and contracting like a lung filling and emptying. These cycles show that ant colonies are not constant entities, but dynamic ones, waxing and waning with time. They are rhythmic, pulsing with the heartbeat of their environment, forever adapting to the turning of seasons and years. Ants contribute to soil formation through bioturbation. Every time an ant digs, it creates soil, not in the metaphorical sense, but literally. By mixing layers, breaking up compacted earth, incorporating organic matter, and creating spaces for air and water, ants transform raw mineral substrate into living soil. The technical term is bioturbation, the reworking of soils and sediments by organisms. Ants are major bioturbators, moving vast amounts of earth over time. In some ecosystems, ants move more soil annually than all other processes combined. including erosion and earthworm activity. This soil work has been ongoing for millions of years. The character of modern soils has been shaped partly by ant activity across that time. They are geologic agents, small in size but vast in cumulative effect. The ground beneath our feet has been processed by countless generations of ants. The spaces ants create their tunnels, and chambers persist even after abandonment. These voids allow root penetration and water infiltration. They create habitats for other soil organisms. An abandoned ant nest becomes a legacy structure, its benefits outlasting the colony that built it. Some ants use tools, a rare ability among invertebrates. Tool use was once thought limited to primates and a few birds, but observations show that some ants also use tools. Certain species collect small stones, leaf fragments, or wood splinters, and use them to carry liquid food back to the nest. The ant dips the tool into liquid food, like honey or extrafloral nectar, soaking it. Then it carries the tool home like a sponge, where the absorbed liquid is shared with nestmates. This allows transport of liquids that would otherwise be difficult to carry in their mouths or crops. The behavior is learned or at least refined through experience. Young ants improve their tool use over time, becoming more efficient. They select appropriate tools, discarding those that don't work well. This shows flexibility and learning, characteristics not usually associated with invertebrates. Tool use in ants is not universal and seems to be a specialized behavior in certain species, but its existence expands our understanding of what tiny nervous systems can achieve. Intelligence and innovation are not limited to large-brained animals. Ants, working with brains smaller than pinheads, have independently discovered tools. Desert ant corpses create nutrient-rich oases that benefit other species. In harsh deserts, death creates opportunity. When desert ants die, their bodies become tiny packages of nutrients. Over time, dead ants accumulate in certain spots, near nest entrances, along commonly used trails, or where colonies abandon old nest sites. These accumulations, though small, concentrate nutrients in otherwise nutrient-poor environments. Plants that establish near these spots grow better than those in surrounding areas. Other invertebrates scavenge the ant corpses, drawing energy from the desert ant's remains. Ant death supports life. The phenomenon scales up. A large colony over its lifetime can process significant amounts of organic matter, concentrating nutrients from wide foraging areas into the nest site. When the colony eventually dies or relocates, this nutrient accumulation remains, creating an enriched patch that persists for years. In the desert's economy, nothing is wasted. Even in death, ants give back to the system that supported them. Their bodies become part of the soil, their accumulated stores feeding new growth, their tunnels providing shelter. The colony's end becomes a beginning for others. Ant jaws can close with forces hundreds of times greater than their body weight. The mandibles of ants, particularly specialized species like trap jaws, generate closing forces far exceeding what their size would suggest. These forces, when measured precisely, can reach hundreds or even thousands of times the ant's body weight. It's as if a human could generate jaw-closing forces equivalent to dozens of tons. This extraordinary force comes from specialized muscle arrangement and leveraged mechanics. The mandibles work like spring-loaded traps, with energy slowly stored in muscles, then released all at once. The speed and force combination makes them devastating weapons against prey. Different species have mandibles optimized for different purposes. Some are designed for piercing and cutting, others for crushing. Leafcutter majors have serrated mandibles that work like scissors. Trapjaw ants have smooth, fast-closing mandibles for stunning prey. Each design reflects millions of years of refinement. The forces involved are sometimes violent enough to damage the ant's own head if not properly reinforced. The head structures in ants with powerful jaws are noticeably more robust, built to withstand the stresses their own weapons generate. They are tiny warriors, armed with weaponry at the limits of what physics allows at their scale. Young worker ants typically work inside the nest before graduating to outside duties. Within an ant colony, there's a progression of roles linked to age. Newly emerged workers, called callows, are soft-bodied and pale. They remain inside the nest, performing relatively safe tasks like tending brood, caring for the queen, or maintaining fungal gardens. As workers age, their exoskeletons harden and darken. They move to more dangerous tasks, nest maintenance, midden work, and eventually foraging. The oldest workers become foragers, risking predation, weather, and getting lost. If they die, the colony has lost an individual near the end of its useful life anyway. This age polytheism makes evolutionary sense. Young workers with many productive days ahead stay safe. Old workers near the end of their lifespan take risks. The colony maximizes its return on investment in each individual. It's actuarial logic, implemented instinctively. The progression isn't rigid. Colonies facing worker shortages can accelerate the process, sending younger ants out earlier than normal. The system is flexible, optimizing for current needs rather than following inflexible rules. Age suggests role, but colony necessity ultimately determines who does what. Ants have limited vision, but can detect polarized light. Most ants have compound eyes, but their vision is relatively poor compared to many other insects. They're better at detecting movement than resolving detail. Some species that live primarily underground have tiny eyes or are effectively blind. Vision is not ants' primary sense. However, ants that navigate using celestial cues have a remarkable ability. They can detect polarized light. Sunlight becomes polarized when it scatters in the atmosphere, creating patterns that depend on the sun's position. Ants can see these patterns even when the sun itself is hidden by clouds or obstacles. This polarized light vision provides compass information. The pattern across the sky acts like an arrow pointing to the sun's location. Desert ants use this for navigation, keeping their bearing even when landmarks are absent and the sun is not directly visible. It's a sophisticated sensory capability hidden in what seems like limited vision. The neural processing required to extract directional information from polarized light patterns is complex. That ants accomplish this with their tiny brains shows remarkable computational efficiency. They extract the information they need and ignore the rest. Specialized sensing for specialized needs. Some ants mimic other ant species to infiltrate their colonies. Chemical mimicry is one thing, but some ant species take deception to another level. They physically and behaviorally mimic other species to infiltrate their colonies. These social parasites have evolved to look and act like their hosts, allowing them to slip past defenses. Some parasitic queens invade host colonies, kill or suppress the host queen, and trick the host workers into raising the parasite's brood. The parasite queen's offspring gradually replace the host species' workers. Eventually, the colony becomes entirely composed of the parasite species served by aging host workers. The resemblance can be striking. Parasites may match their host's size, color, and even movement patterns. They produce chemical signals that either mimic or suppress the host's recognition cues. Some parasites are so convincing that they're accepted immediately, with no conflict. This lifestyle requires exquisite evolutionary tuning. The parasite must match its host well enough to gain acceptance, but remain different enough to pursue its own reproductive strategy. It's a delicate balance, a masquerade maintained by natural selection over countless generations. Ant societies have no unemployment. Every individual has a role. In human societies, unemployment is a persistent challenge. But in ant colonies, there's no such concept. Every healthy worker has tasks it can perform. Even the oldest, most worn-out workers contribute until they die. The colony is a fully employed economy. This total employment emerges from the colony's needs and workers' responsiveness. If food needs to be gathered, ants forage. If brood needs tending, ants nurse. If the nest needs defense, ants guard. Work is distributed based on need, and there's always something that needs doing in a thriving colony. The closest thing to unemployment in ant colonies is lazy ants that seem inactive. But research shows these apparently idle ants serve as reserves, stepping up when demand spikes or emergencies arise. They're not unemployed, but rather strategically idle, ready to deploy when needed. This efficient labor allocation happens without central planning or job markets. It emerges from distributed decision-making, with each ant assessing local needs and acting accordingly. The result is an economy with full employment, no waste, and remarkable productivity, all coordinated through simple interactions. Fire ants form temporary alliances with other colonies when resources are abundant. Though ant colonies typically view non-nestmates as enemies, some species show surprising flexibility. Fire ants, particularly in their invasive ranges where they form supercolonies, sometimes tolerate or even cooperate with nearby colonies when food is abundant enough for all. This pragmatic truce breaks down when resources become scarce. Then, competition resumes and borders are violently enforced. The ants seem to calculate, albeit unconsciously, whether fighting is worth the cost given current conditions. When there's plenty for everyone, tolerance makes sense. When resources are limited, aggression returns. This conditional cooperation shows that ant aggression isn't mindless but adaptive. The colony responds to circumstances, modulating its hostility based on strategic considerations. It's a flexibility that might not be expected from creatures following instinctive rules, yet it emerges naturally from those rules. The temporary alliances never develop into true cooperation. Colonies remain distinct, ready to turn on each other if conditions change. But the willingness to suspend hostility when beneficial shows that even genetically programmed behaviors can produce strategic flexibility. Some ants secrete honeydew-like substances to feed their colony, while most ants that collect honeydew get it from aphids or other sap-feeding insects. Some ant larvae produce their own sweet secretions. These larvae essentially function as internal honeydew sources, providing carbohydrates to workers within the nest. Workers solicit these secretions from larvae much as they would from aphids, stroking them to stimulate release. The larvae benefit from this attention. Workers care for them more diligently when they provide food. It's a reciprocal relationship within the colony, larvae trading food for care. This internal food source supplements external foraging. During times when foraging is dangerous or unproductive, the colony can rely partly on larval secretions. It's a buffer against starvation, a stored reserve accessed through the living bodies of the next generation. The evolutionary origin of this behavior likely traces to general larval secretions that attracted worker attention. Over time, workers that paid more attention to secreting larvae survived better, and larvae that secreted more attracted better care. The relationship intensified through mutual benefit, becoming formalized into an internal farming system. Ants adjust worker production based on colony needs. A colony's workforce must match its needs. Too many foragers and not enough nurses, and brood care suffers. Too many nurses and not enough foragers, and the colony starves. Yet ant colonies consistently maintain appropriate workforce distributions. How? The answer involves feedback mechanisms. Larvae receive different levels of food based on colony needs. Better-fed larvae develop into larger workers suited for certain tasks. Underfed larvae become smaller workers suited for others. Through differential feeding, the colony shapes its future workforce. Pheromones also play a role. The balance of different pheromones in the nest signals what the colony needs. Larvae, developing in a particular chemical environment, may develop along pathways that produce the needed worker types. It's a self-regulating system, anticipating future needs based on current conditions. This workforce planning happens without forecasting or strategy sessions. It emerges from feedback loops between colony needs and developmental processes. The colony essentially grows the workers it will need, sculpting its workforce to match its circumstances. The future is built into the present, needs shaping production unconsciously but effectively. The total weight of all ants may exceed the total weight of all humans. This often cited claim is difficult to verify precisely, but estimates suggest that the total biomass of ants on Earth is comparable to, and possibly exceeds, the total biomass of humans. Given that individual ants weigh milligrams, while humans weigh tens of kilograms, this implies truly staggering ant populations. Recent estimates put ant numbers at around 20 quadrillion individuals. That's 20 followed by 15 zeros. Even at an average mass of 1 milligram, that's 20 million metric tons. Human biomass is estimated at around 300 to 400 million metric tons. But some calculations suggest that when you include nest structure and stored food, ant civilization rivals human civilization in mass. Whether ants outweigh humans or not, the fact that it's even comparable is remarkable. These tiny creatures, individually insignificant, collectively rival our species in physical presence on the planet. Their success is measured not in individual might, but in overwhelming numbers. This biomass represents energy flow and ecological impact. Ants process vast amounts of organic matter, predate on countless other organisms, disperse innumerable seeds, and modify extensive areas of soil. Their ecological footprint is enormous, carved by multitudes of tiny feet marching through time. And so our journey beneath the surface comes to rest. Dear traveler through the hidden kingdom, we have wandered together through tunnels and trails, through wars and partnerships, through agriculture and architecture, built at a scale we barely notice. We have seen empires that rise and fall in the space beneath a single stone. We have witnessed cooperation so profound that individuals become cells in a larger body. We have discovered that intelligence wears many forms, that tiny minds connected can achieve what vast brains alone cannot. The ants remind us that success is not measured in size, but in adaptation, not in individual power, but in collective strength. They show us that civilization is not unique to humans, that agriculture, warfare, slavery, and culture exist in forms older than our species, playing out in miniature beneath our feet every day. As you drift now towards sleep, imagine the world beneath you, alive with industry. Picture millions of workers, each following simple rules, together creating patterns of stunning complexity. See the fungal gardens tended in darkness, the highways of scent criss-crossing the soil, the nurseries where future generations sleep in their silken cocoons. The ants have been here far longer than we have. They will likely persist long after we're gone. In their quiet persistence, there is a lesson about endurance, about finding your niche and perfecting it, about cooperation and sacrifice in service of something larger than self. Let these thoughts settle gently as your breathing slows. Let the image of the endless colony, working always, fade into the peaceful darkness of rest. The ants will continue their ancient work, whether we watch or not, patient architects of the world beneath, tireless as the earth itself. Close your eyes. Feel the solid ground beneath you. Know that beneath that ground, life pulses in corridors we rarely see. Let that thought comfort you. You are part of something vast, resting on foundations built by billions of tiny bodies across deep time. The hidden kingdom keeps its secrets, but you have glimpsed them now, and perhaps, in your dreams, you'll wander those dark tunnels again, lit by the glow of understanding, guided by the chemical trails of wonder. Rest now, knowing the world is larger and stranger than we usually imagine, that beneath every step we take, empires rise and fall, stories unfold in the dark, and life, tenacious, cooperative, endlessly creative life, finds a way. Sleep well, explorer of the small, the hidden, the ancient. Sleep well.